The human soldier's heart pounds as he finds himself cornered in the alien palace. Queen Cora's piercing gaze instantly transforming his fate from captive to king. Jeffrey Lewis, separated from his unit during a fierce battle on planet Alicia, now stands at the epicenter of a cosmic shift that will alter the course of two civilizations. Plasma bolts sizzle past Jeffrey's head as he ducks behind an ornate pillar. The acrid smell of ozone fills his nostrils, mixing with the sweet, unfamiliar scent of alien flora decorating the palace halls. Elysian guards close in, their iridescent armor gleaming under the bioluminescent ceiling. Jeffrey's grip tightens on his pulse rifle, knuckles white beneath his tactical gloves. Suddenly, the firefight ceases. A hush falls over the grand hall as Queen Cora emerges, her lithe form draped in shimmering fabric that seems to capture the light of 1,000 stars. Her eyes lock onto Jeffrey, and time itself seems to pause. "The Stellar King," she breathes, her voice carrying a mix of awe and certainty that silences even the most battle-hardened Elysian warriors. Confusion ripples through the room. Elysian nobles exchange worried glances, their antennae twitching with agitation. Jeffrey's mind races, trying to process the sudden shift from enemy combatant to prophesied ruler. Queen Cora raises a delicate hand, her skin shimmering with an otherworldly glow. "Lower your weapons," she commands. "This human is the one foretold in our ancient legends. He shall be my mate and co-ruler of Alicia." Jeffrey's comms unit crackles to life. The gruff voice of his commanding officer cuts through his stunned silence. "Lewis, this is an unprecedented opportunity. Accept the position. Gather intel. We can turn this war around." As the weight of his new reality settles on his shoulders, Jeffrey realizes the precarious nature of his position. He's a soldier thrust into the heart of alien politics, expected to navigate customs and prophecies he knows nothing about. The fate of humanity and the Elysian race now rests in his hands. Queen Cora approaches, her movements graceful and deliberate. Up close, Jeffrey notices the intricate patterns swirling beneath her translucent skin, a mesmerizing display that momentarily distracts him from the gravity of the situation. "You must prove yourself worthy," she says, her voice low and intense. "Combat, diplomacy, and—" She pauses, her gaze flickering with an emotion Jeffrey can't quite decipher, the ability to produce an heir. "These are the trials that await you, Stellar King." The room buzzes with tension. Jeffrey catches snippets of hushed conversations, words like assassination and peace, intermingling in a dangerous cocktail of hope and fear. He realizes that his every action from this moment forward will tip the scales between lasting peace and all-out war. As Queen Cora takes his hand, a jolt of electricity seems to pass between them. Jeffrey finds himself strangely drawn to her, even as his soldiers' instincts scream caution. He knows he must balance his duty to humanity with his unexpected role as king, all while unraveling the complexities of Elysian society. The once battle-torn hall now stands silent, all eyes fixed on the unlikely pair. Human and Elysian, soldier and queen, standing together at the precipice of a new era. As Jeffrey takes his first step forward, he knows that the coming days will test him in ways he never imagined, with the future of two races hanging in the balance. As the weight of his new reality settled on Jeffrey's shoulders, the grand hall of the Elysian Palace transformed from a battleground to an arena of anticipation. Queen Cora's declaration had barely faded when a group of ornately dressed Elysian officials approached, their antennae twitching with a mixture of curiosity and apprehension. "Your Majesty," one of them addressed Queen Cora, stealing furtive glances at Jeffrey, "the combat trial must commence immediately. It is our way." Queen Cora nodded, her ethereal eyes never leaving Jeffrey's face. "Indeed, prepare the grand arena." Jeffrey's mind raced, trying to process the rapid turn of events. One moment he was a soldier in hostile territory, the next he was being ushered towards a trial that would determine his worthiness as king. The sweet alien scent of the palace mixed with the acrid smell of ozone from the recent firefight, creating a dizzying sensory experience. As they moved through the winding corridors of the palace, Geoffrey caught snippets of hushed conversations among the Elysian nobles. Words like prophecy, human, and unworthy floated on the air, punctuated by clicking sounds he couldn't decipher. He straightened his back, acutely aware of the eyes following his every move. The group emerged into a vast, open-air arena. Thousands of Elysians filled the stands, their iridescent bodies creating a shimmering sea of color under the alien sun. The air thrummed with energy and expectation. At the center of the arena stood a towering figure, his armor more elaborate and imposing than any Geoffrey had seen thus far. Queen Cora's voice cut through the rising murmur of the crowd. "Stellar King," she said, her tone formal yet tinged with something Geoffrey couldn't quite identify. "You face Zorn, our most decorated warrior. This trial will test your combat prowess, your ability to adapt, and your strategic mind. Are you prepared?" Geoffrey's grip tightened on his pulse rifle, the familiar weight of comfort in his alien world. "I am," he replied, surprised by the steadiness in his voice. As if on cue, Zorn charged. Geoffrey's military training kicked in, his body moving before his mind could process the alien's speed. He rolled to the side, narrowly avoiding a swing from Zorn's vibroblade. The crowd roared, the sound unlike anything Geoffrey had ever heard, a mix of clicking mandibles and high-pitched trills. He pushed the noise aside, focusing on his opponent. Zorn was stronger, his reach longer, but Geoffrey quickly realized his human agility gave him an edge. He darted in and out of Zorn's range, landing quick strikes that seemed to confuse the Elysian warrior. As the fight progressed, Geoffrey found himself integrating elements of Zorn's fighting style into his own. He mimicked the fluid, almost dance-like movements, combining them with the efficient brutality of his human combat training. From her royal box, Queen Cora watched intently. Her eyes widened as Geoffrey executed a particularly daring maneuver, using Zorn's own momentum to throw him off balance. A small smile played at the corners of her mouth. The trial shifted to weapons proficiency. Geoffrey's pulse rifle proved effective, but he struggled with the alien weaponry. Yet with each failure he adapted, his quick thinking turning disadvantages into unexpected attacks. In the final phase, a test of strategy, Geoffrey's unconventional human tactics shone. He outmaneuvered Zorn in a complex simulation, using the terrain and resources in ways the Elysian had never considered. As the trial concluded, the arena fell silent. Geoffrey stood, chest heaving, sweat mingling with alien dust on his skin. Zorn approached, his posture rigid. For a moment, tension crackled in the air. Then, to Geoffrey's surprise, Zorn inclined his head in a gesture of respect. The crowd erupted. The initial skepticism had given way to a begrudging admiration. Geoffrey caught sight of Queen Cora, her eyes shining with an emotion he couldn't quite name. As attendants led him from the arena, Geoffrey noticed a group of Elysian nobles huddled together, their faces dark with displeasure. One in particular, adorned with more elaborate regalia than the others, fixed Geoffrey with a calculating stare. Exhausted, Geoffrey was escorted to his new chambers. The room was a blend of alien luxury and familiar comforts, clearly prepared in haste for its human occupant. He had barely begun to process the events of the day when a soft knock at the door announced Queen Cora's arrival. "You performed admirably," she said, her voice carrying a warmth that seemed at odds with her regal bearing. "There is much to discuss, Stellar King, about our ways, our prophecies, and what is expected of you." As Queen Cora began to explain the intricacies of Elysian culture, Geoffrey found himself drawn in by more than just the information. There was an undeniable connection between them, a pull he couldn't explain. Their conversation was cut short by the arrival of the noble Geoffrey had noticed earlier. "My queen," he said, his voice oily smooth, "there are urgent matters of state that require your attention." As Queen Cora reluctantly took her leave, Geoffrey caught a glimmer of movement in the shadows of his room. For a moment, he thought he saw a familiar human face. But exhaustion was taking its toll, and he couldn't be sure if it was real or a trick of his tired mind. Settling onto the alien yet surprisingly comfortable bed, Geoffrey's mind raced with the events of the day and the challenges still to come. Unknown to him, hidden cameras whirred silently, recording his every move, while in the palace's lower levels, a group of disgruntled nobles plotted his downfall. As he drifted off to sleep, Geoffrey's last thoughts were of Queen Cora, the looming diplomatic trial, and the weight of two worlds resting on his shoulders. The game of intergalactic politics had begun, and he was now a key player. The first rays of Alicia's twin suns filtered through the ornate windows of Geoffrey's chamber, rousing him from a fitful sleep. His muscles ached from the previous day's combat trial, a stark reminder of the challenges that lay ahead. As he stretched, his mind raced with thoughts of Queen Cora and the peculiar connection he felt towards her. A soft chime announced the arrival of a group of Elysian attendants. They moved with fluid grace, their iridescent skin shimmering in the early morning light. Without a word, they began preparing Geoffrey for the day ahead, dressing him in a blend of his human military uniform and Elysian royal garments. As the attendants worked, Geoffrey caught sight of his reflection in a polished surface. The man staring back at him seemed a stranger, part soldier, part alien royalty. He barely had time to process this new image of himself before Queen Cora entered the room. "Stellar King," she greeted him, her voice carrying a warmth that seemed at odds with her regal bearing. "Are you prepared for your next trial?" Geoffrey nodded, straightening his posture. "As ready as I can be, Your Majesty." Cora's lips curled into a small smile. "Then let us proceed to the Grand Council chamber. The diplomatic trial awaits." As they walked through the winding corridors of the palace, Geoffrey noticed a mixture of awe and suspicion in the eyes of the Elysians they passed. The weight of his newfound responsibility pressed down on him with each step. The Grand Council chamber was a marvel of alien architecture. Towering ceilings curved overhead, embedded with bioluminescent organisms that pulsed with soft light. At the center of the room, a circular platform was surrounded by 12 ornate seats, each occupied by an elder of the Elysian Council. Geoffrey's eyes were drawn to the intricate holographic displays that filled the air around them. They showed detailed maps of Elysian territories, pulsing with data and information he could barely comprehend. As Queen Cora took her place on a raised dais, Geoffrey found himself face to face with the council. One elder, in particular, caught his attention. The alien's regalia was more elaborate than the others, and his eyes gleamed with barely concealed hostility. "Stellar King," the elder's voice was smooth as oil, "I am Lord Vex. We welcome you to your diplomatic trial." Geoffrey inclined his head respectfully, keenly aware of the tension in the room. Lord Vex gestured to the holographic displays. "Before you are the current disputes plaguing our empire. Your task is to propose solutions that will satisfy all parties while maintaining the delicate balance of our society." As Geoffrey studied the holograms, he felt a familiar presence at his back. Though he dared not turn, he was almost certain he caught a glimpse of Captain Sarah Adams and her team, hidden in the shadows of the chamber. The knowledge that his fellow humans were watching added another layer of complexity to his already precarious position. The trial began in earnest. Geoffrey found himself navigating a political minefield, drawing on every scrap of diplomatic training he'd received in the military. He proposed solutions to territorial disputes, resource allocation problems, and cultural conflicts, all while trying to decipher the complex social cues of the Elysian elders. Lord Vex, true to his name, seemed intent on confounding Geoffrey at every turn. He introduced conflicting information, posed trick questions, and subtly undermined Jeffrey's proposals. Yet, as the trial progressed, Jeffrey began to find his footing. He drew upon Earth's history, citing examples of conflict resolution and peaceful negotiations. His unique human perspective allowed him to see connections and possibilities that the Elysians had overlooked. With each successful proposal, he could see Queen Cora's eyes shining with growing admiration. As the trial neared its end, Lord Vex played his final card. "Stellar King," he announced, his voice dripping with false sincerity, "you have impressed us with your unconventional solutions. But now, we present you with our greatest challenge. Before you is the data concerning the blood feud between the houses of Zor and Kale. This conflict has raged for centuries. How would you bring peace between these ancient enemies?" Jeffrey studied the holographic display, his mind racing. The complexity of the feud was staggering, with layers of cultural and historical significance he could barely fathom. As he pondered his response, he noticed Queen Cora's usually serene expression falter for just a moment. Acting on instinct, Jeffrey turned to the Queen. "Your Majesty, might I have a moment of your counsel?" The council chamber fell silent as Queen Cora gracefully descended from her dais to join Jeffrey. As they stood close, heads bowed in quiet conversation, Jeffrey could feel the eyes of the council, the hidden human operatives, and Lord Vex boring into them. "This feud," Cora whispered, her voice heavy with emotion, "it involves my family. The House of Zor is my ancestral line. The pain of this conflict runs deep in our history." Jeffrey's mind raced, processing this new information. In that moment, he saw not just a queen, but a woman burdened by the weight of her people's history. Without thinking, he reached out and took her hand, an act that sent a ripple of murmurs through the watching crowd. Drawing strength from their connection, Jeffrey turned back to the council. "Esteemed elders," he began, his voice ringing clear through the chamber, "I propose a solution that will not only end this feud but strengthen the bonds of your empire." As Jeffrey outlined his plan for a symbolic marriage between the feuding houses, blessed by both himself and Queen Cora, he could see the shift in the council's demeanor. Even Lord Vex's allies seemed impressed by the elegance of the solution. The chamber erupted in approving murmurs as Jeffrey concluded his proposal. Queen Cora, moved by his intuitive understanding of her people's needs, stepped forward. "The Stellar King has proven his wisdom," she announced, her voice filled with pride. "He has passed this trial with honor." As the words left her lips, alarms began to blare throughout the palace. The holographic displays flickered, showing a small Elysian outpost under attack. Jeffrey's blood ran cold as he recognized the tactics of his own people. In that moment, with Queen Cora looking to him for guidance and Lord Vex watching for any sign of betrayal, Jeffrey realized that his greatest trial was just beginning. The alarms continued to blare, their piercing wail echoing through the chamber. Jeffrey's heart raced as he processed the implications of what he was seeing on the holographic displays. Queen Cora's eyes, moments ago filled with pride, now bored into him with a mixture of confusion and suspicion. "Stellar King," she said, her voice tight with nearly unleashed emotion, "what is the meaning of this?" Jeffrey's mind reeled as he tried to formulate a response. He could feel the weight of every gaze in the room upon him, from the Elysian council members to Lord Vex, whose expression had shifted from disdain to a barely concealed triumphant smirk. "Your Majesty," Jeffrey began, his voice steady despite the turmoil within, "I assure you, I had no knowledge of this attack. But I swear to you, I will get to the bottom of this." The room erupted into a cacophony of voices, accusations flying from all directions. Lord Vex's voice rose above the rest. "How convenient that the human claims ignorance. Perhaps this is all part of their plan to infiltrate and destroy us from within." Queen Cora raised a hand, silencing the room. Her gaze never left Jeffrey as she spoke. "What do you propose, Stellar King?" How will you prove your innocence and your commitment to Alicia? Jeffrey's training kicked in, his mind racing through possible solutions. In a moment of clarity, he stepped forward, his posture straightening as he addressed not just the Queen, but the entire council. I propose leading a joint human legion task force to investigate this attack and negotiate a ceasefire, he said, his voice ringing with conviction. Let me prove my dedication to peace and to Alicia through action, not just words. A murmur rippled through the council. Queen Cora's expression softened slightly, a glimmer of hope in her eyes. An interesting proposal, she said, her voice measured. But how can we trust you to lead such a mission? Jeffrey met her gaze unflinchingly. I understand your hesitation, Your Majesty. That's why I suggest you assign one of your most trusted advisors to accompany me. Someone who can keep a close eye on my actions and report back to you directly. Queen Cora nodded slowly, her mind working through the implications. After a moment of consideration, she turned to a regal Elysian woman standing nearby. Lady Xena, you will accompany the Stellar King on this mission. Your experience as both a diplomat and a warrior will serve you well. Lady Xena stepped forward, her iridescent skin shimmering under the chamber's lights. She bowed deeply to the Queen before fixing Jeffrey with a piercing stare. It will be my honor, Your Majesty. As preparations for the mission began, Jeffrey found himself escorted back to his chambers. The palace was a flurry of activity, with Elysian guards and officials rushing about, their faces etched with concern. In the relative privacy of his room, Jeffrey's mind raced. He needed to contact his own people, to understand what was happening. As if in answer to his thoughts, a slight movement in the shadows caught his attention. Captain Sarah Adams emerged from a hidden alcove, her face grim. "Commander," she whispered, her voice barely audible. "We need to talk." Jeffrey nodded, quickly checking to ensure they were truly alone. "What's going on, Sarah? Why are our forces attacking Elysian outposts?" Sarah's expression was a mixture of regret and dedication. "It's General Hawthorne. Sir, he's convinced that the Elysians are planning to use you as a puppet ruler, to control humanity through you. This attack, it's meant to be a show of force, to prove that we won't be manipulated." Jeffrey felt as if the floor had dropped out from under him. The weight of his position, caught between two worlds, had never felt heavier. "This is madness, Sarah. We're on the brink of interstellar war because of paranoia and misunderstanding." Sarah nodded grimly. "What are your orders, sir?" Jeffrey paced the room, his mind working furiously. "I'm going to play both sides, Sarah. It's the only way to bring peace. I'll lead this task force, try and negotiate a ceasefire, but I need you and your team to keep working from the shadows. Gather intel. Keep me informed of Hawthorne's moves." "Understood, sir," Sarah replied, her voice filled with respect. "But what about your position here? Your relationship with the Queen?" Jeffrey paused, his heart constricting at the thought of Queen Cora. "I'll do what I must to maintain peace," he said softly, "no matter the personal cost." As Sarah melted back into the shadows, Jeffrey steeled himself for what was to come. He had mere minutes before he would need to depart with Lady Xena and the task force. The fate of two civilizations rested on his shoulders, and he could not afford to falter. The sleek Elysian spacecraft hummed with energy as Jeffrey and Lady Xena boarded. The tension between them was palpable as they took their seats in the command center. As the ship lifted off, streaking towards the attacked outpost, Jeffrey knew that every decision he made from this point on would shape the future of human-Elysian relations. "Stellar King." Lady Xena's voice cut through his thoughts, her tone crisp and professional. "Perhaps you would care to share your insights on human military tactics as we approach our destination?" Jeffrey turned to her, recognizing the question for what it was, both a test and an opportunity. As he began to explain, He could see a glimmer of grudging respect in Lady Zena's eyes. The journey to the outpost had begun, and with it, Jeffrey's most crucial mission yet. As the Elysian spacecraft approached the attacked outpost, Jeffrey's mind raced with conflicting thoughts. The weight of his dual responsibilities pressed down on him, but he forced himself to focus on the immediate task at hand. Lady Zena's voice cut through his musings. "We're approaching the outpost, Stellar King. What do you suggest our first move should be?" Jeffrey studied the tactical display, noting the patterns of destruction. "We should establish a secure perimeter first," he began, but his words were cut short as the ship's communication system crackled to life. "Incoming transmission from the Royal Palace," announced the pilot. "It's marked urgent." Lady Zena's eyes narrowed as she glanced at Jeffrey. "Perhaps your human allies have more surprises for us?" Ignoring the barb, Jeffrey nodded to the pilot. "Put it through." Queen Cora's holographic image materialized before them, her face etched with concern. "Stellar King, Lady Zena, you must return to the palace immediately. The situation has escalated." As the ship reversed course, Jeffrey felt a knot forming in his stomach. The journey back to the palace seemed to stretch on endlessly, filled with tense silence and furtive glances between him and Lady Zena. Upon their arrival, they were immediately ushered into the Grand Council chamber. The room buzzed with nervous energy, Elysian nobles whispering among themselves as Jeffrey and Lady Zena took their places. Queen Cora stood at the center of the room, her regal bearing masking the turmoil Jeffrey could see in her eyes. "Stellar King," she began, her voice carrying a hint of uncertainty, "recent events have forced us to accelerate our plans. The final trial awaits you." Lord Vex stepped forward, a predatory smile playing on his lips. "Yes, the fertility trial, a sacred Elysian ritual to ensure the continuation of the royal bloodline." Jeffrey's mind reeled at the implications. He had known that his role as king-to-be would involve producing an heir, but he hadn't expected it to happen so soon or so publicly. Queen Cora's gaze met his, a mixture of apprehension and something deeper, more personal, in her eyes. "The trial involves a series of physical and biological compatibility tests," she explained softly. "It will culminate in a public demonstration of our ability to produce an heir." The chamber fell silent as the weight of her words settled over the assembly. Jeffrey could feel every eye upon him, gauging his reaction. He forced his face to remain impassive, even as his heart raced. Lord Vex's voice cut through the silence. "Of course, we've invited a larger audience than usual for this trial. The people deserve to see if their future king is truly compatible with our beloved queen." As if on cue, the chamber doors swung open, admitting a crowd of Elysian nobles and commoners. They filed in, their curious gazes fixed on Jeffrey and Queen Cora. Jeffrey's military training kicked in, helping him maintain his composure as he was led, along with Queen Cora, to a specially prepared chamber within the palace. The room hummed with advanced bio-scanning technology, its purpose now clear to Jeffrey. As the first phase of tests began, Jeffrey found himself marveling at the similarities and differences between human and Elysian biology. The scanning devices whirred and pulsed, collecting data on their genetic makeup. Throughout the examination, Jeffrey couldn't help but notice Queen Cora's discomfort with the public nature of the proceedings. He did his best to shield her from the prying eyes of the audience, earning a grateful smile from her. As they moved into the physical synchronization tests, Jeffrey's natural athleticism came to the fore. Despite Lord Vex's clear attempts to make the tests more difficult, Jeffrey adapted quickly, matching Queen Cora's movements with surprising grace. The watching Elysians murmured in approval as Jeffrey and Queen Cora completed each test. Even Lady Zena, standing at the edge of the chamber, seemed grudgingly impressed. As they prepared for the final phase of the trial, Jeffrey could feel the tension in the room ratcheting up. Queen Cora's hand trembled slightly as she reached for him, and he gave it a reassuring squeeze. Just as they were about to begin, a piercing alarm shattered the charged atmosphere of the chamber. Chaos erupted as Elysian guards rushed into the room, their faces pale with urgency. "Your Majesty," one guard shouted above the din, "a massive human fleet has been detected entering Elysian space. They're on a direct course for the capital." The room exploded into pandemonium. Lord Vex's voice rose above the rest, pointing an accusing finger at Jeffrey. "Treachery. The human has led an invasion force to our very doorstep." Jeffrey's mind raced as he processed the information. General Hawthorne had made his move, and now everything hung in the balance. Queen Cora turned to Jeffrey, her eyes a swirling mix of emotions, fear, hope, and a hint of betrayal. "Stellar King," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. "What is happening?" In that moment, with the eyes of two civilizations upon him, Jeffrey knew his next words and actions would shape the future of both races. The fertility trial forgotten, he found himself facing a much more urgent test of his loyalties and abilities. As alarms blared and the Elysian Defense Forces scrambled to respond, Jeffrey took a deep breath, steeling himself for the challenge ahead. The time had come to prove whether he could truly bridge the gap between humans and Elysians, or if the prophecy of the Stellar King had been nothing more than a cruel cosmic joke. In that crucial moment, Jeffrey's military training took over. He stepped forward, his voice cutting through the chaos that threatened to engulf the chamber. "Everyone, please remain calm," he said, his tone commanding yet reassuring. "Queen Cora, I request immediate access to your communication systems. We need to address both our peoples before the situation spirals out of control." Queen Cora hesitated for a split second, her eyes searching Jeffrey's face. Then, with a quick nod, she turned to her advisors. "Grant the Stellar King full access to our broadcast capabilities." As Elysian technicians rushed to prepare the systems, Jeffrey's mind raced. He knew he had one chance to prevent an all-out war between humans and Elysians. The irony of the situation wasn't lost on him. Moments ago, he had been preparing for an intimate demonstration of unity, and now he stood on the precipice of interstellar conflict. Within minutes, Jeffrey found himself facing an array of holographic projectors. He took a deep breath, knowing his words would be broadcast to both the approaching human fleet and every corner of Elysian space. "People of Earth and Elysia," he began, his voice steady and clear. "I stand before you as both a human soldier and the chosen Elysian king. In this unprecedented moment, I urge you all to pause and consider the monumental opportunity before us." Jeffrey's words flowed with passion and conviction as he outlined the potential benefits of cooperation between the two species. He spoke of shared scientific advancements, cultural exchanges, and the possibility of joint exploration of the cosmos. "For centuries, we've looked to the stars and wondered if we were alone," he continued. "Now we stand at the threshold of a new era, one where two intelligent species can learn from each other, grow together, and face the challenges of the universe as allies rather than adversaries." As he spoke, Jeffrey could see the effect of his words. The faces of the Elysians in the chamber softened, their earlier fear replaced by curiosity and hope. On the tactical displays, he noticed the human fleet's advance slowing, signs of confusion and hesitation evident in their formation. Seizing the moment, Jeffrey made his proposal. "I call for an immediate summit between human and Elysian leaders. Let us meet face to face and chart a course for peace and mutual prosperity. As a gesture of good faith and unity, Queen Cora and I will complete the fertility trial, not as a test of my worthiness as king, but as a symbol of the potential harmony between our races." He turned to Queen Cora, extending his hand. She took it without hesitation, stepping into view of the projectors. Her presence beside him sent a powerful message to both humans and Elysians. "What say you, leaders of Earth and Elysia?" Jeffrey asked, his gaze intense. "Shall we make history together?" The response was not immediate. Tense moments passed as both sides considered his words. Then, a transmission came through from the human fleet. General Hawthorne's face appeared, his expression a mix of frustration and grudging respect. "This is highly irregular, Stellar King," Hawthorne said, his use of Jeffrey's Elysian title not going unnoticed. "But given the unprecedented nature of the situation, we are willing to agree to a temporary ceasefire and attend this summit of yours." Queen Cora stepped forward, her regal bearing on full display. "The Elysian people accept this proposal. We will host a summit in our grand hall and ensure the safety of all attendees." As preparations for the summit began in earnest, Jeffrey felt a moment of relief. He had bought time, but he knew the real challenge lay ahead. The chamber buzzed with activity as Elysian officials coordinated with their human counterparts to arrange the details of the meeting. Amidst the commotion, Jeffrey noticed Lord Vex moving through the crowd, whispering to various Elysian nobles. The look in Vex's eyes told Jeffrey all he needed to know. The ambitious lord was not about to let this opportunity for peace proceed unchallenged. Before Jeffrey could confront Vex, Lady Xena approached him. Her expression was one of guarded respect. "Stellar King," she said, her voice low, "I've just returned from the outpost. Your actions there and here today have proven your commitment to peace. You have my support in the coming negotiations." Jeffrey nodded gratefully, knowing that Lady Xena's backing would be crucial in the face of Lord Vex's machinations. As he turned to continue the summit preparations, his eyes met Queen Cora's across the room. In that shared glance, he saw a mix of admiration, hope, and something deeper, a connection that went beyond their political alliance. The grand hall of the Elysian Palace was transformed into a nexus of interstellar diplomacy. Human and Elysian leaders filed in, their faces a mix of curiosity, suspicion, and cautious optimism. Jeffrey and Queen Cora took their places at the head of the ornate table, symbolizing their unique position as bridges between the two civilizations. As the summit commenced, Jeffrey found himself navigating a minefield of centuries-old mistrust and conflicting interests. He drew on his experiences from both worlds, carefully mediating between human demands for technology sharing and Elysian concerns about cultural preservation. The negotiations ebbed and flowed, with moments of tension followed by breakthroughs. Jeffrey's proposal for a comprehensive scientific and cultural exchange program became the centerpiece of the discussions. Human scientists leaned forward in their seats, eyes gleaming at the prospect of studying Elysian biotechnology. Elysian cultural leaders, in turn, expressed fascination with humanity's diverse artistic traditions. As the talks progressed, the unfinished fertility trial emerged as an unexpected point of interest. Human xenobiologists pressed for details about Elysian reproductive biology, while Elysian elders viewed the trial as a final test of Jeffrey's commitment to their world. In a moment of inspiration, Jeffrey stood, silencing the murmurs that had filled the hall. "The fertility trial will be completed," he announced, his voice carrying to every corner of the room. "Not as a mere formality, but as a symbol of the union between our two races. Queen Cora and I will demonstrate that humans and Elysians can come together not just in politics and science, but in the most fundamental aspects of life." Queen Cora rose to stand beside him, her hand finding his. The gesture sent a ripple of surprise and intrigue through the assembled leaders. For a moment, the weight of their responsibilities seemed to lift, replaced by the simple power of two individuals choosing to stand together. As the summit drew to a close, a tentative peace accord was drafted. The document, filled with provisions for cultural exchanges, technological cooperation, and joint colonization efforts, represented a monumental shift in human-Elysian relations. Yet, as the leaders began to disperse, Jeffrey couldn't shake the feeling that this was just the beginning of a long and challenging journey. He noticed General Hawthorne huddled with a group of hardline human officers, their expressions dark and unsatisfied. Across the room, Lord Vex was engaged in hushed conversation with several Elysian nobles, his eyes occasionally darting towards Geoffrey and Queen Cora. As night fell over the Elysian capital, Geoffrey found himself walking with Queen Cora towards her private chambers. The events of the day burdened immensely on both of them, the fate of two civilizations resting on their shoulders. "You are magnificent today," Cora said softly as they reached her door. "I never imagined a human could understand our ways so quickly, let alone champion them as you have." Geoffrey looked at her, seeing past the regal exterior to the woman beneath, a leader bearing the hopes and fears of her entire race. "And I never imagined I'd find such wisdom and compassion among the stars," he replied. As they stood there, the air between them charged with unspoken emotion, Geoffrey knew that the completion of the fertility trial would be more than just a political gesture. It would be a true test of their connection, one that could reshape the future of both their races. The sound of approaching footsteps broke the moment. An Elysian attendant approached, bowing low. "Your Majesty, Stellar King, the preparations for the fertility trial are complete. The people await your arrival in the sacred chamber." Geoffrey and Cora exchanged a look, both understanding the magnitude of what lay ahead. As they moved to follow the attendant, Geoffrey's mind raced with the challenges that still faced them: General Hawthorne's potential betrayal, Lord Vex's scheming, and the delicate balance of the newly formed peace. Yet, as he walked beside Queen Cora, Geoffrey felt a renewed sense of purpose. Whatever trials lay ahead, he was determined to face them, for the sake of both their peoples, and for the connection he and Cora had forged amidst the stars. As Geoffrey and Queen Cora followed the attendant towards the sacred chamber, the weight of the moment pressed upon them. The halls of the royal palace hummed with an electric anticipation, a mix of excitement and trepidation filling the air. Upon entering the chamber, they were greeted by a sight that embodied the newfound cooperation between their races. The room was a fusion of Elysian biotechnology and human medical equipment, each piece carefully arranged to create a harmonious blend of both worlds. Dr. Ilera, the chief Elysian medical expert, stepped forward. "Stellar King, Your Majesty, we've made all necessary preparations. The chamber is ready for the completion of the fertility trial." Geoffrey nodded, his eyes meeting Cora's. In that shared glance, a silent understanding passed between them. This was no longer just a test of his worthiness as king, but a symbol of unity for both their peoples. As they moved to take their positions, a commotion at the chamber's entrance caught their attention. Captain Sarah Adams, her uniform slightly disheveled, pushed past the guards. "Stellar King," she called out, her voice urgent, "I need to speak with you." Geoffrey tensed, recognizing her as one of Earth's top intelligence operatives. "Captain Adams, what are you doing here?" Sarah took a deep breath, her eyes darting between Geoffrey and the assembled Elysian officials. "Sir, my team and I have been operating covertly within the palace. Our mission was to gather intelligence, but things have changed." A ripple of shock went through the room. Queen Cora's guards moved to surround her protectively, but she waved them off with a regal gesture. Sarah continued, her voice steady despite the tension. "After witnessing your actions and the potential for peace you've created, we've decided to come forward. We want to offer our expertise to assist in the fertility trial and the peace process." Geoffrey studied her face, searching for any sign of deception. Finding none, he turned to Queen Cora. "What do you think?" Cora's eyes narrowed as she considered the human captain. After a moment, she nodded. "If the Stellar King trusts you, then we will accept your assistance. But know that any betrayal will be dealt with swiftly." With that settled, the fertility trial began. A series of non-invasive scans bathed Geoffrey and Cora in soft, pulsating light. The assembled scientists watched in fascination as data streamed across their screens. Dr. Ilera's eyes widened as she analyzed the results. "This is Incredible. The genetic similarity between humans and Elysians is far higher than we ever imagined. The announcement sent a wave of excitement through the room. Human and Elysian scientists huddled together, discussing the implications in hushed, animated tones. As the trial progressed to its more intimate stages, Jeffrey and Cora found themselves navigating uncharted territory. The connection between them, built through shared trials and mutual respect, deepened with each passing moment. Unnoticed by most, Lord Vex's agent moved silently among the observation team, subtly manipulating equipment and altering data readings. However, Sarah Adams, her trained eye catching the discrepancies, quickly moved to counteract the sabotage. The climax of the trial brought an unexpected phenomenon. A surge of bioenergy emanated from Jeffrey and Cora, filling the chamber with a soft, otherworldly glow. The Elysian elders present gasped, recognizing the sign from their ancient prophecies. As the energy subsided, Dr. Alara announced the final results. While natural conception between humans and Elysians is impossible, the data we've gathered opens up incredible possibilities for artificial reproductive techniques. We could potentially combine the genetic material of both species. The implications of this discovery were staggering. Jeffrey and Cora, still catching their breath, shared a look of wonder and hope. As news of the successful trial spread, the mood across both human and Elysian territories shifted dramatically. Screens everywhere broadcast images of Jeffrey and Queen Cora, now seen as living symbols of unity and cooperation. However, not everyone welcomed this turn of events. In a secluded corner of the human fleet, General Hawthorne paced furiously, his face contorted with anger. "This is unacceptable," he growled to his assembled officers. "Jeffrey has betrayed humanity. We must act now, before it's too late." His subordinates nodded grimly, already formulating plans for a swift and decisive strike against key Elysian targets. Meanwhile, in the shadows of the Elysian palace, Lord Vex gathered his most loyal supporters. His voice low and intense, he outlined his plan for a coup. "The time has come to seize control," he hissed. "We will strike when they least expect it, and restore Alicia to its true path." As dawn broke over the Elysian capital, Jeffrey and Queen Cora emerged from the fertility chamber, exhausted but filled with a sense of accomplishment. The success of the trial and its implications for peace between their peoples fueled their optimism for the future. Yet, as they walked arm in arm through the palace corridors, neither was aware of the storm gathering around them. The fragile peace they had worked so hard to achieve now faced threats from both within and without, setting the stage for a conflict that would test not only their leadership, but the very foundations of human-Elysian relations. As they stepped out into the palace gardens, seeking a moment of respite, the weight of their recent experience hung in the air between them. "I never imagined the trial would yield such promising results," Cora said, her voice barely above a whisper. "The implications for our peoples." Jeffrey nodded, his mind already racing with possibilities. "We have a unique opportunity here, Cora. A chance to bridge the gap between our species in ways we never thought possible." Their conversation was cut short by the urgent approach of Captain Sarah Adams. Her face was etched with concern as she saluted Jeffrey. "Stellar King, Your Majesty, I have critical information," she said, her voice low and urgent. "We've uncovered evidence of an imminent attack on the palace." Jeffrey's body tensed, his military instincts kicking in. "What kind of attack? Who's behind it?" Sarah's eyes darted around, ensuring they weren't overheard. "It's General Hawthorne. Surrey's dispatched a team of elite operatives to infiltrate the palace. Their mission is to sabotage the peace process and eliminate you." Cora's hand found Jeffrey's, gripping it tightly. "We must act quickly. The palace defenses dash." "May already be compromised," Jeffrey finished, his mind racing through potential scenarios. "Sarah, gather a team of our most trusted human and Elysian personnel. We need to form a joint security force immediately. As Sarah hurried off to carry out his orders, Jeffrey turned to Cora. We need to secure the vital areas of the palace: the throne room, communication center, and... His eyes widened with sudden realization. Dr. Alara's lab, the fertility trial data. Cora nodded, understanding the importance. If that research falls into the wrong hands, it could be devastating. They moved swiftly through the palace corridors, alerting loyal guards and coordinating defenses. The once peaceful halls now buzzed with tension as human and Elysian forces prepare for the impending attack. In Dr. Alara's lab, they found the Elysian scientist hunched over a console, her face illuminated by holographic displays. "Your Majesties," she said, looking up as they entered, "I've made a breakthrough in analyzing the fertility trial data. It's extraordinary." "What have you found?" Cora asked, her curiosity momentarily overriding her concern for the looming threat. Dr. Alara's eyes shone with excitement. While natural conception between humans and Elysians is impossible, there's potential for creating hybrid offspring through advanced bioengineering techniques. It could revolutionize our understanding of both species biology. The implications of this discovery hung in the air, a beacon of hope amidst the gathering storm. But before they could fully process the information, alarms blared throughout the palace. "They're here," Jeffrey said, his hand instinctively moving to the weapon at his hip. The sound of distant explosions echoed through the corridors, followed by the unmistakable crackle of energy weapons. Jeffrey and Cora exchanged a look, years of leadership experience conveyed in a single glance. "Dr. Alara, secure that data." "It's crucial for our future," Cora commanded. Jeffrey tapped his comm device. "Sarah, status report." "Sir, we've got multiple breaches." Sarah's voice came through, punctuated by the sound of weapons fire. "Colonel Vance's team has infiltrated the main power core. They're attempting to disable our defenses and communications." "Understood. We'll handle it," Jeffrey replied, his mind already formulating a plan. "Cora, we need to split up. I'll take a team to the power core. Can you secure the throne room?" Cora nodded, her regal bearing amplified by the grit in her eyes. "I'll rally the royal guards." "Be careful, Jeffrey." As they parted ways, the palace transformed into a battlefield. Human and Elysian forces clashed in the ornate corridors, energy blasts scorching ancient murals and shattering crystalline structures. Jeffrey led a mixed team of human and Elysian soldiers towards the power core, utilizing his knowledge of human tactics to anticipate Colonel Vance's moves. They encountered heavy resistance, but the combined strengths of both species proved formidable. Meanwhile, Cora found herself facing an unexpected threat. As she approached the throne room, she was confronted by Lord Vex and a group of rebel Elysian nobles. "Your reign ends here, Cora," Vex sneered, raising an ornate energy staff. "Elysia will return to its true path, free from human influence." Cora stood her ground, her voice carrying the weight of generations of Elysian rulers. "You're on the wrong side of history, Vex. Our future lies in unity, not isolation." The throne room erupted into chaos as loyal guards clashed with Vex supporters. Cora moved with grace and precision, her combat training evident as she deflected energy blasts and incapacitated attackers. Back at the power core, Jeffrey's team cornered Colonel Vance's operatives. The human colonel's face contorted with anger as he recognized Jeffrey. "Traitor," Vance spat. "You've turned your back on your own kind." Jeffrey's voice was steady as he replied, "I'm fighting for the future of both our species, Vance. Stand down." The ensuing firefight was intense but brief. Jeffrey's team, working in perfect synchronization, quickly overwhelmed Vance's forces. As the last of the saboteurs fell, Jeffrey secured the power core, ensuring the palace's defenses remained operational. With the immediate threats neutralized, Jeffrey raced back towards Dr. Alera's lab, knowing the vital research stored there would be a prime target. He arrived to find Cora already there, her clothing singed from battle but her persistence unshaken. Together, they stood guard over the lab, facing waves of attackers from both human and Elysian rebel factions. Their fighting styles complemented each other perfectly, Jeffrey's tactical precision merging seamlessly with Cora's fluid grace. As they fought side by side, defending the future of human-Elysian relations, the bond between them deepened. Every coordinated move, every shared glance in the heat of battle, spoke volumes about their growing connection. The lab's defenses held, but the battle for the palace and the future of both species was nowhere near the end. Outside, the first rays of dawn broke over the Elysian capital, illuminating a city on the brink of monumental change. Change! The fragile peace they had worked so hard to achieve now hung in the balance, threatened by forces determined to tear it apart. As Jeffrey and Cora continued their vigil in Dr. Alera's lab, the sounds of battle grew closer. The once impenetrable palace defenses began to falter under the relentless assault. Energy blasts scorched the walls, and the acrid smell of ozone filled the air. "We can't hold this position indefinitely," Jeffrey said, his voice tense as he surveyed the damage to the lab's entrance. "We need to consider our options." Cora nodded, her eyes scanning the room. "The research must be protected at all costs. It's our best hope for a lasting peace." Dr. Alera looked up from her console, her face etched with worry. "I've compressed the most critical data into portable storage devices, but there's still so much equipment we can't move quickly." Jeffrey's mind raced, weighing their limited options. With an unshakable focus, he made his decision. "We need to evacuate. Dr. Alera, gather whatever you can carry. We're leaving." As they prepared for their desperate escape, the lab's reinforced doors shuddered under a heavy impact. The sound of metal tearing echoed through the room, followed by the unmistakable crackle of energy weapons. "They're breaking through!" Cora shouted, raising her weapon. Jeffrey took up a defensive position beside her, their bodies moving in perfect synchronization as they faced the imminent threat. The door burst open in a shower of sparks, revealing a mix of human operatives and Elysian rebels. The lab erupted into chaos as energy blasts crisscrossed the air. Jeffrey and Cora moved as one, their complementary fighting styles creating an impenetrable defense. Human precision merged with Elysian grace, each covering the other's blind spots. In the midst of the firefight, a familiar voice cut through the din. "Stellar King, Your Majesty, we're here to extract you." Captain Sarah Adams burst into the lab, leading a team of loyal human and Elysian soldiers. Her arrival shifted the tide of the battle, creating an opportunity for escape. "Sarah," perfect timing, Jeffrey called out, relief evident in his voice. "We need to get Dr. Alera and her research to safety." As they fought their way out of the lab, the palace shook with a massive explosion. The air filled with dust and debris, forcing them to cover their faces. "What was that?" Cora asked, her eyes wide with concern. Sarah's face darkened. "Lord Vex has unleashed the forbidden weapons. The palace structure is compromised." They pressed on, navigating through corridors now barely recognizable. Fallen pillars and shattered crystal formations blocked their path at every turn. Jeffrey's military training kicked in as he led the group, while Cora's intimate knowledge of the palace proved invaluable in finding alternative routes. As they rounded a corner, they encountered an unexpected sight. A group of Elysian civilians, led by a determined-looking woman, had formed a human shield at a junction. "Zara," Cora exclaimed, recognizing the leader. "What are you doing here?" The Elysian woman stood tall, her voice unwavering. "We've come to support you, Your Majesty. Your unity with the Stellar King has shown us the way forward." Touched by this display of solidarity, Jeffrey made a swift decision. He activated his military implant, sending out an encrypted distress signal. "This might give us the edge we need," he muttered, hoping the message would reach sympathetic ears in the human fleet. Their progress was halting. Each step forward met with resistance. As they neared a more defensible position, a heart-wrenching cry stopped them in their tracks. Beneath a pile of debris, a young Elysian child lay trapped, its iridescent skin dulled by dust and fear. Without hesitation, Jeffrey and Cora moved to help. They worked in tandem, carefully lifting the wreckage while Sarah and her team provided cover fire. As Cora cradled the injured child, Jeffrey felt a surge of emotion. This, he realized, was what they were fighting for, a future where humans and Elysians could come together, protecting and nurturing each other. Their moment of compassion was short-lived. Colonel Vance's voice rang out, filled with venom. "There's nowhere left to run, traitor." Vance and his elite team had finally caught up, their weapons trained on the group. Jeffrey and Cora shared a quick glance, a silent agreement passing between them. They would make their stand here. The ensuing battle was fierce and close quarters. Jeffrey's adaptability shone as he seamlessly switched between human and Elysian weapons, while Cora's innate abilities allowed her to manipulate the very air around them, deflecting energy blasts. Just as the situation seemed most dire, with Vance's forces pushing them back, the sound of engines roared overhead. A new voice crackled over the communication channels. "This is Admiral Helena Frost of the human fleet. I am here to support the peace process and protect the hybridization research. All combatants are ordered to stand down immediately." The arrival of Admiral Frost's ships shifted the balance of power dramatically. Vance's face contorted with rage as he realized the support had evaporated. With a snarl, he retreated, leaving Jeffrey and his allies a clear path to safety. Exhausted but relieved, the group finally reached their destination, a secure bunker deep beneath the palace. As the massive doors sealed behind them, Jeffrey and Cora shared a moment of quiet triumph. They had protected the research in each other, but both knew this was only the beginning. In the relative safety of the bunker, Dr. Alara immediately set to work, her fingers flying over holographic displays as she assessed the rescued data. Jeffrey and Cora, still catching their breath, began to formulate their next move. "Admiral Frost's intervention has bought us time," Jeffrey said, his mind already racing with possibilities. "But we need to act fast to capitalize on this advantage." Cora nodded, her eyes shining with willpower. "We must reach out to both our peoples, show them the truth of what we've discovered here." As they huddled together, planning their next steps, the weight of their responsibilities settled over them. The fate of two civilizations rested in their hands, and the choices they made in the coming hours would shape the future of human-Elysian relations for generations to come. Come. As the bunker doors sealed with a reassuring hiss, Jeffrey and Cora found themselves in a state-of-the-art command center, hidden deep beneath the Elysian palace. The stark contrast between the chaos above and the orderly efficiency of the bunker was jarring. Sleek consoles lined the walls, their displays flickering to life as the group entered. Dr. Alara wasted no time, her fingers flying over holographic interfaces as she set up her equipment to continue her vital research. Jeffrey moved to the central command station, his military training kicking in as he assessed their tactical situation. "We need to establish contact with Admiral Frost," he said, his voice steady despite the adrenaline still coursing through his system. Queen Cora nodded, her regal bearing undiminished by the stress of recent events. "Our communications array should be powerful enough to penetrate any interference." With practiced ease, Jeffrey navigated the unfamiliar Elysian technology, patching into the secure channels used by the human fleet. Admiral Helena Frost's face appeared on the main screen, her expression a mix of relief and drive. "Stellar King, Your Majesty," she greeted them, "I'm glad to see you're safe. We've established a defensive perimeter around the palace, but the situation remains volatile." Jeffrey leaned forward, his eyes scanning the tactical readouts. "What's the status of General Hawthorne's forces?" "They're in disarray," Frost reported. "Many ships are refusing to engage in hostile actions. It seems your message has struck a chord with more than a few captains." This news brought a glimmer of hope to Jeffrey's eyes. "That gives us some breathing room. We need to use this time wisely." As they discussed strategy, alarms suddenly blared throughout the bunker. The main screen shifted to an exterior view of the Elysian capital, where an ominous change was taking place. The sky, once a vibrant tapestry of colors, was darkening at an unnatural rate. Dr. Alera's voice cut through the confusion. "It's the stellar siphon. Lord Vex has activated it." Cora's face paled. "By the ancestors, he's gone mad. That weapon could destroy our entire system." Jeffrey's mind raced, analyzing the new threat. "We need to shut it down. Fast." He turned to Cora, his expression grim. "I'll lead a team to infiltrate the control center. Can you coordinate the palace defense from here?" Cora nodded, her eyes meeting his with unwavering willpower. "Be careful, Jeffrey. This weapon is unlike anything you've faced before." As Jeffrey assembled his team, selecting a mix of human and Elysian specialists, he and Cora found themselves drawn together. In the midst of the frantic preparations, they shared a quiet moment, their hands intertwining. "Cora, Jeffrey began, but words failed him. She placed a finger on his lips, silencing him. "I know," she whispered. Then, with a surge of emotion, they came together in a passionate embrace. It was brief but intense, conveying all the unspoken feelings between them. As they parted, Jeffrey felt a renewed sense of purpose. He turned to his team, his voice steady and confident. "Let's move out. We've got a weapon to disable." They made their way through the bunker's emergency exit, emerging into the chaos of the war-torn palace. The once grand corridors were now a battlefield, littered with debris and echoing with the sounds of distant fighting. Jeffrey led his team with practiced efficiency, navigating through the maze-like structure. They encountered pockets of resistance, loyalist Elysian guards unaware of the larger threat, automated defense systems activated by the weapon's energy surge. As they pushed forward, strange phenomena began to occur around them. Ancient Elysian technology, dormant for centuries, sparked to life. Hidden doors slid open, revealing chambers filled with artifacts of unimaginable power and purpose. "By the stars," breathed Sarah, her eyes wide as they passed a room where constellations danced in midair. The stories about Elysian tech barely scratched the surface. Jeffrey nodded, his mind racing with the potential implications. "Focus on the mission," he reminded them, even as his own curiosity burned. "We can explore once we've neutralized the threat." They pressed on, the palace growing more unstable with each passing minute. The stellar siphon's energy drain was taking its toll, causing tremors that shook the very foundations of the structure. As they neared the weapons control center, a familiar voice rang out. "Hold it right there, traitor." Colonel Vance emerged from a side passage, flanked by his remaining operatives. His face was contorted with a mix of rage and desperation. Jeffrey's team reacted instantly, taking up defensive positions. The ensuing battle was a chaotic blend of human and Elysian combat techniques. Energy weapons clashed with more conventional firearms, while Elysian telekinesis threw off carefully aimed shots. In the midst of the firefight, Jeffrey found himself face-to-face with Vance. The colonel's eyes burned with hatred as he leveled his weapon at Jeffrey's chest. "You've doomed humanity," Vance spat. "Throwing in your lot with these aliens." Jeffrey didn't waver. "You're wrong, Vance. This is our future together." The standoff was broken by a massive tremor that shook the entire palace. Both sides stumbled, and in that moment of confusion, Jeffrey's team pressed their advantage. With a coordinated push, they broke through Vance's lines, driving toward the control center's outer defenses. As they breached the final barrier, Jeffrey's comm unit crackled to life. Cora's voice came through, tight with tension. "Jeffrey, we have a new problem. General Hawthorne has ordered his remaining loyal ships to launch an all-out assault on the capital. We're out of time." Jeffrey's heart made as he surveyed the imposing door of the Stellar Siphon's control center. Behind it lay the key to saving both their peoples, or their mutual destruction. With a nod to his team, he stepped forward, ready to face whatever challenges awaited them on the other side. With a deep breath, Jeffrey pressed his palm against the control panel's biometric scanner. The massive door hissed open, revealing the heart of the Stellar Siphon's control center. The team rushed in, weapons at the ready, only to find themselves face-to-face with Lord Vex and his elite guard. The Elysian leader stood before a towering array of crystalline structures, his hands manipulating holographic controls with practiced ease. "You're too late," Vex sneered, his eyes gleaming with a mixture of triumph and madness. "The siphon is already at maximum capacity. Soon, your primitive fleet will be nothing but dust in the wind." Jeffrey's comm unit crackled to life once more, Cora's voice urgent in his ear. "Jeffrey, General Hawthorne's ships have breached the outer atmosphere. They're engaging Admiral Frost's fleet now." As if on cue, the ground beneath their feet trembled. Through the control center's panoramic windows, Jeffrey watched in horror as the sky began to darken unnaturally, stars winking out one by one. "Team, engage!" Jeffrey barked, diving for cover as energy bolts from Vex guards sizzled past his head. The control center erupted into chaos. Human and Elysian weapons clashed in a cacophony of light and sound. Sarah and her squad moved with practiced precision, laying down suppressing fire, while Jeffrey's Elysian allies used their telekinetic abilities to create makeshift barriers from debris. Jeffrey weaved through the melee, his eyes locked on Lord Vex. The Elysian leader had abandoned his post at the controls, drawing a sleek energy sword from his belt. They circled each other, the battle raging around them, fading into background noise. "Your vision for our people is flawed, Vex," Jeffrey said, his voice steady despite the adrenaline coursing through his veins. "There's another way, a future where humans and Elysians stand together." Vex's face contorted with rage. "Naive fool! You would doom us to extinction." Their weapons met in a shower of sparks. Jeffrey's military training served him well, but Vex's centuries of experience made him a formidable opponent. They traded blows, each seeking an opening in the other's defense. As they fought, Jeffrey caught glimpses of the battle outside. Admiral Frost's ships were holding their own, but Hawthorne's forces pressed their advantage with relentless persistence. Debris from destroyed vessels rained down on the city, the palace's shields flickering under the assault. Suddenly, a new voice cut through the din of battle. "Jeffrey!" He turned to see Queen Cora standing in the doorway, her regal attire singed and torn, a determined fire in her eyes. She was flanked by a small group of loyal guards, their weapons trained on Vex forces. The fighting momentarily ceased, all eyes drawn to the Elysian Queen. Jeffrey used the distraction to his advantage, delivering a swift kick to Vex's midsection. The Elysian leader stumbled back, his grip on his weapon loosening. "It's over, Vex," Jeffrey said, leveling his weapon at the other man's chest. Cora stepped forward, her voice carrying the weight of command. "Stand down, all of you. This madness ends now." For a moment, it seemed as though reason might prevail. Then Vex let out a primal scream of rage, lunging for the siphon's controls. "If I can't have victory, then none of us will." His fingers flew over the holographic interface, and the room began to shake violently. Outside, the sky grew even darker, visible distortions rippling through the air. "He's overloading the siphon," one of the Elysian scientists cried out in horror. Jeffrey and Cora shared a look of understanding. Without a word, they raced to the main control panel. Cora's hands moved with practiced ease over the alien technology, while Jeffrey stood ready to defend her from any who would interfere. Jeffrey, Queen Cora. Dr. Alera's voice came through their comm units, breathless with excitement. I've made a discovery, the energy signature from your fertility trial. It matches the frequency needed to destabilize the siphon. Your compatibility could be the key to shutting it down. Cora's eyes widened with realization. Of course, the ancient text spoke of a power born from the union of two worlds. She grabbed Jeffrey's hand, pulling him closer to the control panel. We need to channel our energy into the system. It's the only way to stop this. Without hesitation, Jeffrey nodded. They placed their hands on the shimmering surface of the controls, feeling a strange tingling sensation as the machine recognized their presence. As they focused their combined will on shutting down the siphon, the air around them began to crackle with energy. Arcs of blue-white lightning danced between the crystalline structures, growing more intense by the second. The room erupted into chaos once more. Vex, seeing his plans crumbling before his eyes, rallied his remaining guards for one last, desperate assault. Sarah and the others formed a protective ring around Jeffrey and Cora, fending off attacks from all sides. Outside, the space battle reached its climax. The darkened sky began to clear, stars reappearing one by one as the siphon's grip on the system weakened. But the energy buildup in the control center continued to escalate, causing systems throughout the palace to surge to life. Hidden doors slid open, revealing chambers filled with ancient Elysian technology. A massive holographic display flickered to life, showing the vast expanse of Elysian territory across multiple star systems. As the siphon's power waned, Jeffrey and Cora found themselves unable to break their connection to the machine. Energy coursed through their bodies, binding them to the controls as the system reached critical instability. Jeffrey, Cora gasped, her voice strained. Whatever happens, know that I... Her words were cut short as a blinding flash of light engulfed the control center. For a moment, everything seemed to hang in perfect stillness. Then, with a deafening roar, the energy surged outward and the world around them exploded into chaos. Chaos. The blinding flash faded, replaced by an eerie, pulsating glow that filled the control center. Jeffrey and Cora remained frozen in place. Their hands fused to the control panel as energy coursed through their bodies. Dr. Alera's voice crackled through the comm system, barely audible above the din. Initiating emergency protocol. The crystalline structures surrounding them began to hum, their facets lighting up in intricate patterns. Arcs of energy danced between them, forming a complex network that spread throughout the palace. Sarah and the others watched in awe as the excess power from the stellar siphon was redirected, flowing through ancient conduits hidden within the walls. The violent tremors subsided, replaced by a low, steady vibration. Jeffrey felt a tingling sensation spreading from his fingertips, up his arms, and throughout his entire body. He tried to speak, to call out to Cora, but found himself unable to move or make a sound. Through the corner of his eye, he saw her outline shimmering, her form seemingly blurring at the edges. As the energy levels began to stabilize, Jeffrey became aware of a strange resonance between himself and Cora. It was as if their very selves were singing to each other, harmonizing in ways he couldn't comprehend. The glow intensified one final time, before abruptly cutting out. Jeffrey and Cora collapsed to the floor, their connection to the machine finally broken. Sarah rushed to their side, checking for vital signs. "They're alive!" she called out, relief evident in her voice. Lord Vex, seeing his plans crumble before him, made a desperate dash for the exit. He didn't make it far. Two of Cora's guards tackled him to the ground, swiftly restraining the would-be usurper. Outside, the space battle had reached its climax. Admiral Frost's voice came through the comm system, his tone triumphant. The enemy fleet is in disarray. Several ships are standing down, and requesting terms of surrender. A cheer went up among Jeffrey's team, but their celebration was cut short as alarms began blaring throughout the palace. Warning, an automated voice announced, "Incoming projectile detected. Impact imminent." Sarah's eyes widened in realization. Hawthorne, he's making a final push. The next few moments passed in a blur of activity. Orders were shouted, defensive systems engaged. Through the panoramic windows, they watched as Admiral Frost's fleet and the Elysian planetary defenses unleashed a barrage of fire. The sky lit up with explosions, and for a heart-stopping moment, it seemed as though Hawthorne's ship might break through. Then, in a brilliant flash, the enemy flagship disintegrated, its debris harmlessly scattering across the upper atmosphere. As the immediate danger passed, attention turned back to Jeffrey and Cora. Medical teams rushed in, carefully moving them onto stretchers. Dr. Alara's voice came through once more, urgent and excited. "Get them to the advanced medical facility immediately. The readings I'm getting, they're unprecedented." As they were wheeled out, Jeffrey's eyes fluttered open briefly. His gaze met Cora's, and in that moment, he knew something fundamental had changed. He felt different, as if his body was no longer entirely his own. The journey to the medical facility was a blur of motion and hushed voices. Jeffrey caught snippets of conversation, words like hybridization and genetic merger floating around him. He tried to focus, to understand what was happening, but exhaustion pulled him back into unconsciousness. When he next awoke, Jeffrey found himself in a state-of-the-art medical bay. Cora lay in the bed next to his, her chest rising and falling steadily. Dr. Alara stood between them, her expression a mix of awe and intense concentration as she studied a holographic display of their vital signs. "Doctor," Jeffrey croaked, his voice hoarse, "what's happened to us?" Dr. Alara turned to him, her eyes shining with excitement. "Something extraordinary, Jeffrey. The energy from the stellar siphon, combined with your unique compatibility. It's caused a partial genetic merger between you and Queen Cora." Jeffrey's mind reeled at the implications. He raised his hand, examining it closely. His skin seemed to shimmer faintly, reminiscent of the ethereal quality he'd always associated with the Elysians. Cora stirred beside him, her eyes opening slowly. As their gazes met, Jeffrey felt a surge of connection unlike anything he'd experienced before. It was as if he could sense her thoughts, her emotions, on a level that transcended normal human perception. "Jeffrey," she whispered, reaching out to him. As their hands touched, a spark of energy passed between them, visible even to Dr. Alara. "Fascinating," the doctor muttered, making notes on her datapad. "Your hybrid state appears to have enhanced your innate connection. This could have far-reaching implications for human-Elysian relations." Before they could discuss further, the door to the medical bay slid open. Admiral Frost entered, followed by a delegation of human and Elysian officials. Their expressions were a mix of concern, curiosity, and barely suppressed excitement. "Jeffrey, Your Majesty," Admiral Frost began, his voice solemn, "I'm glad to see you both awake. There have been significant developments while you were recovering." As the Admiral began to brief them on the events that had transpired in their absence, the defeat of Hawthorne's forces, the ongoing peace negotiations, and the public reaction to news of their hybridization, Jeffrey and Cora exchanged a look of understanding. They were at the threshold of a new era, one that would challenge everything both humans and Elysians thought they knew about themselves and each other. Whatever lay ahead, they would face it together, their bond now deeper and more profound than ever before. As Jeffrey and Cora lay side by side in the medical bay, their bodies began to change in ways neither of them could have anticipated. Jeffrey's skin took on a subtle, iridescent sheen, reminiscent of the ethereal glow he had always associated with the Elysians. Cora, on the other hand, found her one solid colored eyes developing intricate, human-like irises. Dr. Alara, her excitement impossibly strong, hovered over them with an array of advanced diagnostic tools. "Fascinating," she murmured, her eyes darting between her patients and the holographic displays. "The hybridization process is progressing far more rapidly than we initially projected." Jeffrey flexes fingers, marveling at the new sensations coursing through his body. "I feel different," he said, his voice a mix of wonder and apprehension. "Stronger, somehow." Cora nodded, her eyes locked on Jeffrey's. "I sense it too. It's as if my perception has expanded beyond what I thought possible." Dr. Alara tapped rapidly on her datapad, recording their observations. "Your genetic merger has activated dormant sequences in both your DNA. We're seeing enhanced physical abilities across the board: strength, agility, sensory perception. But there's more." She trailed off as Jeffrey and Cora suddenly tensed, their eyes widening in unison. Without a word spoken aloud, they turned to face each other, an unspoken understanding passing between them. "You heard that?" Jeffrey asked, his voice barely above a whisper. Cora nodded, a smile spreading across her face. "Your thoughts. I heard them as clearly as if you had spoken." Dr. Alara's eyebrows shot up. "Telepathic communication? That's a trait previously exclusive to Elysians. This is groundbreaking." As the days passed, Jeffrey and Cora's recovery accelerated, their enhanced biology working overtime to heal their bodies. They spent hours exploring their new abilities, pushing the limits of their hybrid physiology. Their telepathic bond grew stronger, allowing them to communicate silently over increasing distances. One afternoon, as they stood before a large window overlooking the Elysian capital, Admiral Frost entered the room, his face grave. "Jeffrey, Your Majesty," he said, nodding to each of them. "I'm afraid we have a situation developing." He briefed them on the current political landscape, the power vacuum left by the defeat of General Hawthorne and Lord Vex, the ongoing peace negotiations, and the mixed reactions to news of their hybridization. "There's more," Frost continued, his expression darkening. "We've detected coordinated attacks on key infrastructure across both human and Elysian territories. The perpetrators seem to be working in tandem. Human supremacists led by Colonel Vance, who evaded capture, and an Elysian purist faction headed by Lady Zindra." Jeffrey's mind focused. "They're targeting the hybridization research facility, aren't they?" Frost nodded. "It's their primary target. They see it as a symbol of what they're fighting against." Cora stepped forward, her posture radiating dedication. "We can't stand idly by while they threaten everything we've worked for. Jeffrey, we need to take action." Jeffrey nodded, feeling the same dedication coursing through him. "Agreed. Admiral, we're leaving the medical facility. It's time we took a more active role in defending the peace process." Despite protests from Dr. Alara and the medical staff, Jeffrey and Cora prepared to face the challenges ahead. They organized a joint human-Elysian task force, leveraging their unique position as hybrids to bridge the gap between the two species. As preparations for their first mission were underway, Cora approached Jeffrey with an idea. "There's an Elysian bonding ceremony," she explained. "It's traditionally performed between Elysian couples, but I believe we could modify it to suit our hybrid nature. It could serve as a powerful symbol of unity for both our peoples." Jeffrey agreed, and soon they found themselves standing before a gathering of human and Elysian dignitaries. The ceremony blended elements from both cultures, culminating in a moment where Jeffrey and Cora's hands were bound together with a shimmering cord of energy. As they turned to face the assembled crowd, a deafening explosion rocked the chamber. In the chaos that followed, Jeffrey's enhanced reflexes kicked in. He pulled Cora to the ground, shielding her with his body as debris rained down around them. Through the smoke and confusion, they could hear screams and the sound of weapons fire. Their eyes met, a silent agreement passing between them. This attack was only the beginning. The road ahead would be fraught with danger, but they would face it together as one. Rising to their feet, Jeffrey and Cora surveyed the damage. Their hybrid physiology had protected them from the worst of the blast, but others had not been so fortunate. As they moved to help the injured, their minds were already racing, formulating plans to counter the extremist threat and secure a future where humans and Elysians could coexist in peace. Harmony. As they moved to help the injured, their minds were already racing, formulating plans to counter the extremist threat and secure a future where humans and Elysians could coexist in peace. In the aftermath of the attack, Jeffrey and Cora made a swift decision. They needed to act quickly to protect their vision of a unified future. Within hours, they boarded their newly commissioned hybrid vessel, the Harmony, and set course for the outer reaches of known space. As the Harmony glided through the star-studded void, Jeffrey stood at the helm, his enhanced senses attuned to the ship's systems in ways he never thought possible. Cora joined him, her presence a comforting warmth in his mind. "We're approaching the edge of charted space," Jeffrey said, his eyes fixed on the holographic display. "Where do we go from here?" Before Cora could respond, alarms blared throughout the bridge. The ship's AI spoke in a calm, modulated tone. "Anomaly detected. Massive gravitational disturbance ahead." Cora's eyes widened as she studied the readings. "I've never seen anything like this. It's pulling us in." Jeffrey's hands flew over the controls, his hybrid reflexes working in perfect synchronization with the ship's systems. "Engines at maximum. We need to break free." Despite their efforts, the Harmony was drawn inexorably towards a swirling vortex of energy that had appeared before them. As they passed through its event horizon, the ship shuddered violently. For a moment, it felt as if reality itself was bending around them. Then, as suddenly as it began, the turbulence ceased. The view screen cleared, revealing an unfamiliar star system spread out before them. "Where are we?" Jeffrey breathed, his voice filled with a mixture of awe and apprehension. Cora ran a quick scan of their surroundings. "Unknown. This system doesn't match any in our database." Her eyes lit up as she focused on a particular reading. "Jeffrey, look at this. The third planet from the star. It's habitable." As they approached the planet, both Jeffrey and Cora felt an inexplicable pull towards it. The world below them was a breathtaking tapestry of blue oceans, lush green continents, and swirling white clouds. "It's beautiful," Cora whispered. "It's as if it was made for us." Jeffrey nodded, understanding exactly what she meant. "Let's take a closer look." They guided the Harmony into the planet's atmosphere, marveling at the landscape that unfolded beneath them. Vast forests reminiscent of Earth's redwoods stood alongside crystalline structures that could have been plucked from Alicia's most serene gardens. As they set the ship down in a clearing, Jeffrey and Cora exchanged a look of mutual understanding. This world, this unexpected gift, could be the answer they had been seeking. "We'll call it Nova Harmonia," Cora said, her voice filled with commitment. Jeffrey smiled, squeezing her hand. "A new harmony. It's perfect." They stepped out onto the soil of Nova Harmonia, their enhanced senses immediately overwhelmed by the richness of their surroundings. The air was thick with the scent of unfamiliar flora, and the ground hummed with an energy that resonated with their hybrid physiology. As they began to explore, Jeffrey's attention was drawn to a subtle pattern in the planet's energy field. "Cora, do you feel that? There's something beneath us." Cora nodded, her brow furrowed in concentration. "It's faint, but it's there. We should investigate." They spent the next few hours setting up a base camp, their hybrid strength and stamina allowing them to work tirelessly. Once the basics were established, they turned their attention to the mysterious energy signature. Using equipment from the Harmony, they were able to pinpoint the source of the emissions. It led them to a nondescript hill several kilometers from their camp. As they approached, the ground beneath their feet began to vibrate softly. "There's definitely something here," Jeffrey said, running his hand over a patch of earth. To his surprise, the ground shifted at his touch, revealing a hidden panel. Cora knelt beside him, her eyes wide with excitement. "It's some kind of access point. Can you open it?" Jeffrey nodded, his fingers working with preternatural precision. With a soft hiss, the panel slid open, revealing a dimly lit passageway that descended into the earth. They exchanged a brief look before starting their descent. The passage was clearly artificial, its walls smooth and lined with pulsing conduits of energy. As they ventured deeper, the air grew thick with anticipation. Finally, they emerged into a vast chamber that took their breath away. The room was filled with advanced technology, far beyond anything they had encountered before. At its center stood a towering crystal structure, pulsing with an inner light. "What is this place?" Jeffrey whispered, his voice filled with awe. Cora approached one of the nearby consoles, her hands hovering over its surface. It's a database. And look at this." She pointed to a symbol etched into the console's side. "I've seen this before in ancient Elysian texts. It's the mark of the progenitors." Jeffrey joined her at the console, his mind racing with the implications of their discovery. The progenitors? But they're just a myth, aren't they? Cora shook her head, her eyes shining with excitement. "Not anymore. This is real, Jeffrey. And I think this might be the key to everything we've been working towards." As they began to explore the ancient facility, neither of them could shake the feeling that they had stumbled upon something far greater than they could have imagined. Nova Harmonia, it seemed, held secrets that could reshape the future of both their species. Outside, the sun began to set on the alien world, casting a golden glow across the landscape. In the fading light, the Harmony stood as a beacon of hope, a promise of the new life that was about to unfold on this distant shore. As the sun dipped below the horizon, casting long shadows across Nova Harmonia's alien landscape, Jeffrey and Cora stood before the entrance to the hidden facility, their minds reeling from the implications of their discovery. The mark of the progenitors, once thought to be mere myth, now stood as tangible proof of an ancient legacy that could reshape their understanding of both human and Elysian history. "We need to investigate further," Jeffrey said, his voice tinged with a mixture of excitement and apprehension. "This facility could hold the key to everything we've been working towards." Cora nodded, her eyes gleaming with persistence. "Agreed. Let's start with a comprehensive scan of the planet's interior. If this facility exists, there might be more hidden beneath the surface." They returned to the Harmony, their hybrid physiology allowing them to work tirelessly through the night. Using the advanced progenitor technology they had discovered, they initiated a deep scan of Nova Harmonia's core. As the data streamed in, their eyes widened in astonishment. "Jeffrey, look at this," Cora gasped, pointing to the holographic display. "The planet's interior. It's hollow." The scan revealed an intricate network of chambers and tunnels stretching throughout Nova Harmonia's core. It was clear that much of the planet's interior was not only hollow, but potentially habitable. Without hesitation, Jeffrey and Cora organized a joint human-Elysian expedition to explore the depths of their new home. As they descended through winding passages, the air grew thick with anticipation. The walls pulsed with the same energy they had encountered in the first chamber, guiding them deeper into the planet's mysteries. Hours into their journey, they stumbled upon a series of sealed vaults. With nervous excitement, Jeffrey activated the opening mechanism. As the doors slid open, a cold mist spilled out, revealing rows upon rows of preservation pods. Cora approached one of the pods, her hand hovering over its frosted surface. As she wiped away the condensation, she gasped, "Jeffrey, these are proto-humans." Jeffrey moved to another section, his eyes wide with disbelief. And here, Proto-Elysians. It's as if the progenitors were studying the early development of both our species. As they moved through the vault, they encountered pods containing various other alien species, each in different stages of development. The implications were staggering. Nova Harmonia wasn't just a planet. It was a vast laboratory, a testing ground for something far greater than they had imagined. Their exploration led them to a central chamber dominated by a towering crystalline structure. As they approached, the crystal pulsed with light, and a holographic interface flickered to life before them. An androgynous figure materialized, its form shifting between various alien appearances. When it spoke, its voice resonated with ancient wisdom. "Welcome, children of two worlds. Your presence here activates the final phase of the grand experiment." The hologram proceeded to reveal the true purpose of Nova Harmonia. It was designed as a refuge and testing ground for various species, with the ultimate goal of creating a perfect hybrid race capable of surviving cosmic threats. Jeffrey and Cora exchanged a look of understanding. Their own hybrid nature wasn't an accident. It was the culmination of eons of careful planning and genetic manipulation. As they delved deeper into the planet's core, they encountered automated defense systems. To their surprise, these systems recognized their hybrid DNA, granting them access to restricted areas. In one such area, they discovered a massive chamber housing a supercomputer containing the collective knowledge of the progenitors. This could revolutionize both our societies, Cora breathed, her fingers dancing over the control panel. Jeffrey nodded, his mind racing with possibilities. With this knowledge, we could accelerate our technological development by centuries, maybe even millennia. Their exploration culminated in a discovery that would change everything. At the very heart of Nova Harmonia, they found a colossal energy source powering the entire world. But it wasn't just a power source. It was also a beacon, capable of transmitting signals across vast distances of space. As Jeffrey studied the controls, realization dawned on him. "Cora, I think this beacon is meant to call other spacefaring races to Nova Harmonia. It's an invitation to participate in the progenitors' grand experiment of species integration." Cora's eyes widened. Should we activate it? After a moment of hesitation, they made their decision. With a shared nod, they initiated the beacon's activation sequence. The chamber hummed with power as the signal burst forth, carrying their call across the cosmos. Within hours, the colony's long-range sensors detected multiple ships entering the system from various directions. These vessels belonged to previously unknown alien races, all drawn by the progenitor beacon's irresistible call. As Jeffrey and Cora rushed back to the surface to address this new development, they were unaware of the growing tensions in the colony. The extremist factions led by Colonel Vance and Lady Zindra had infiltrated the settlement, disguising themselves as colonists and spreading discord among the population. Upon their return, Jeffrey and Cora found the colony in a state of near panic. Rumors about the dangers of hybridization and the unnatural nature of Nova Harmonia had taken root, fueled by the fear of the approaching alien ships. As the first of the alien vessels entered Nova Harmonia's orbit, Jeffrey and Cora faced their greatest challenge yet. They needed to unite their divided colony, confront the extremist threat, and prepare for first contact with multiple alien races, all while safeguarding the incredible legacy of the progenitors and their vision for a hybrid future. The fate of Nova Harmonia hung in the balance as Jeffrey and Cora stood on the precipice of a new era, one that would test the limits of their leadership and the strength of their bond. Hybrid future. The moment of reflection was fleeting as alarms blared across the colony, snapping Jeffrey and Cora back to the urgent situation at hand. The approaching alien vessels had triggered a wave of panic among the colonists, and reports of sabotage attempts flooded in from multiple landing sites. "We need to act fast," Jeffrey said, his enhanced senses already picking up the distant sound of explosions. "If we don't secure those landing zones, this first contact could turn into a disaster." Cora nodded, her hybrid physiology allowing her to process the information at lightning speed. "We'll cover more ground if we split up. You take the main landing zone. I'll handle the secondary sites." Without another word, they sprang into action. Jeffrey's muscles coiled and released as he sprinted towards the primary landing area, his enhanced speed allowing him to cover ground at an astonishing rate. The wind whipped past his face as he navigated the maze of prefab structures and newly erected buildings. As he approached the main landing zone, Jeffrey caught sight of Colonel Vance and his team carefully placing explosive devices around the perimeter. The colonel's face was contorted with a mixture of fear and persistence as he worked. Jeffrey didn't hesitate. He launched himself into the midst of the saboteurs, his hybrid reflexes allowing him to dodge the first surprise swing from one of Vance's men. In a fluid motion, he disarmed the attacker and used the man's momentum to throw him into two of his comrades. Colonel Vance snarled and charged at Jeffrey, brandishing a shock baton. "You're too late, hybrid. We won't let these aliens corrupt our people any further." Jeffrey sidestepped the attack, his hand shooting out to grab Vance's wrist. With a quick twist, he disarmed the colonel and swept his legs out from under him. "You're wrong, Vance. This is our future, whether you like it or not." As Jeffrey engaged the remaining saboteurs, his heightened senses allowed him to track multiple opponents simultaneously. He ducked under a punch, countered with a swift jab to the solar plexus, and spun to catch a kick aimed at his back. Each movement was precise, efficient, and devastatingly effective. Across the colony, Queen Cora arrived at one of the secondary landing sites to find Lady Zindra orchestrating her own act of sabotage. The Elysian extremist's hands glowed with crackling energy as she prepared to unleash a devastating attack on the landing pad. Cora didn't waste time with words. She channeled her own Elysian energy, combining it with her human physical prowess in a unique hybrid fighting style. As Lady Zindra launched a bolt of energy, Cora deflected it with a shimmering force field before closing the distance with inhuman speed. The two women engaged in a dazzling display of combat, energy bolts clashing with physical strikes. Cora's hybrid nature gave her an edge, allowing her to anticipate Zindra's energy attacks while countering with swift, powerful blows. "You're a disgrace to our people." Zindra spat, her eyes blazing with fanatical fury. Cora ducked under a sweeping energy blade, retaliating with a palm strike that sent Zindra staggering back. "Our people's future lies in unity, not division," she replied, her voice steady despite the intensity of the fight. As both battles raged on, the sky above Nova Harmonia lit up with the fiery trails of descending alien ships. The largest of these, a sleek vessel that seemed to shimmer with an otherworldly light, began its approach to the main landing zone. The sight of the ship momentarily distracted both the combatants and the watching colonists. Jeffrey used this opportunity to subdue the last of Vance's men, quickly fashioning restraints from nearby construction materials. Across the colony, Cora capitalized on Zindra's lapse in concentration, unleashing a combination of Elysian energy techniques and martial arts moves that left the extremist leader unconscious and defeated. With their respective threats neutralized, Jeffrey and Cora regrouped at the main landing zone just as the alien ship touched down. The colony held its collective breath as the ship's hull split open, revealing beings that defied easy description. The Zephyrians emerged, their bioluminescent bodies pulsing with soft light as they floated gracefully from their ship. Their multiple appendages moved in mesmerizing patterns, and their large, expressive eyes seemed to take in everything at once. At the forefront of the group, a Zephyrian with particularly vibrant bioluminescence approached Jeffrey and Cora. When it spoke, the sound was like music, a melodious language that bypassed their ears and resonated directly in their minds. "Greetings, children of two worlds. I am Ambassador Lumina of the Zephyrians. We have long awaited this day. Jeffrey and Cora found themselves responding in kind, their thoughts translating seamlessly into the Zephyrian language. As they communicated, Lumina revealed the true nature of their arrival and the grand design of the progenitors. As more alien ships landed and new species emerged to join the gathering, Jeffrey and Cora felt a change come over them. Their skin began to glow faintly, reminiscent of the Zephyrians' bioluminescence. This visible transformation served as a powerful symbol of adaptation and unity, capturing the attention of both colonists and alien visitors alike. Ambassador Lumina, clearly impressed by their leadership and embodiment of the progenitors' ideals, stepped forward. "We propose the formation of an interstellar council," she announced, her thoughts resonating with all present. "Together, we shall guide the development of our shared civilization as the progenitors intended." As discussions about this proposal began, a low rumble shook the ground beneath their feet. Jeffrey and Cora exchanged alarmed glances, recognizing the implications immediately. The planet's core, housing the ancient progenitor technology, was becoming unstable. "We need to act quickly," Jeffrey said, his mind racing with possibilities. "If we don't stabilize the core, everything we've worked for could be lost." Cora nodded, her expression resolute. "We'll need to assemble a team. This mission will require the best of all our species." As they began to gather volunteers from among the humans, Elysians, and newly arrived aliens, Jeffrey and Cora found a moment alone. The weight of their responsibilities and the excitement of new possibilities overcame them, leading to an intimate encounter that transcended their previous experiences. Their hybrid physiologies resonated in new and unexpected ways, deepening their bond and reaffirming their commitment to the future they were fighting to create. With their team assembled and final preparations underway, Jeffrey and Cora stood at the entrance to the underground complex. The fate of Nova Harmonia and the progenitors' grand experiment hung in the balance as they prepared to descend into the planet's depths. The success of their mission would determine not just their own future, but the future of countless species across the galaxy. Galaxy. The words hung in the air, pregnant with possibility, as Jeffrey and Cora exchanged a determined look. There was no time to waste. "Let's move," Jeffrey said, his voice carrying an unmistakable note of urgency. The makeshift team of humans, Elysians, Zephyrians, and other newly arrived alien species followed Jeffrey and Cora into the subterranean complex. The air grew thicker as they descended, the walls vibrating with an ominous hum that seemed to intensify with each step. Cora's newly developed energy manipulation abilities tingled at her fingertips as she sensed hidden security measures left by the progenitors. With a graceful wave of her hand, she neutralized a series of energy barriers that blocked their path. "Impressive," Ambassador Lumina remarked, her bioluminescent body pulsing with admiration. The team's progress came to an abrupt halt as they reached a massive chasm, its depths lost in inky darkness. Jeffrey approached the edge, his enhanced vision scanning for a solution. "We need to cross," he announced, his mind already formulating a plan. "Everyone, gather whatever materials you can find. We're building a bridge." Working with superhuman speed and strength, Jeffrey began constructing a makeshift span across the chasm. His muscles strained as he lifted and positioned massive beams, his hybrid physiology allowing him to accomplish what would have been impossible for a normal human. As the team crossed the precarious bridge, they encountered a series of biomechanical interfaces. Cora placed her hand on one of the panels, her hybrid DNA activating the ancient technology. A hidden passage revealed itself, leading the team deeper into the planet's core. The air crackled with energy as they neared their destination. Jeffrey's military training kicked in as he organized a diverse group, assigning roles based on each species' unique abilities. "Zephyrians, use your bioluminescence to detect energy fluctuations," he ordered. "Everyone else, stay alert and report any unusual readings." As they entered a vast chamber, the team froze in awe. Rows of stasis pods lined the walls, each containing a sleeping progenitor. The ancient beings stirred, their millennia-long slumber disturbed by the energy surges from the unstable core. "We can't afford any distractions," Cora said, her royal upbringing evident in her authoritative tone. "We need to stabilize the core first. Then we can deal with the progenitors." The team pressed on, navigating through increasingly dangerous energy surges. Jeffrey and Cora's complementary leadership styles shone as they coordinated their diverse group through the hazardous environment. Finally, they reached the central core chamber. The sight before them was both breathtaking and terrifying. A massive sphere of pulsating energy occupied the center of the room, its surface rippling with unstable patterns. "The energy distribution system is misaligned," Cora observed, her hybrid intuition allowing her to grasp the complex interplay of energies. Jeffrey nodded, his mind already formulating a plan. "We need to recalibrate the core. Everyone, take your positions." The team spread out around the core, following Jeffrey and Cora's instructions. The hybrid leaders took center stage, their bodies glowing with an otherworldly light as they interfaced directly with the planet's systems. Jeffrey grappled with massive energy conduits, his enhanced strength allowing him to manipulate the physical components of the core. Meanwhile, Cora focused on the intricate energy flow patterns, her hands dancing in the air as she redirected and balanced the power output. As they worked, a hidden progenitor archive activated, projecting holographic images of Nova Harmonia's history. The team watched in amazement as the full scope of the progenitor's plan unfolded before them. The recalibration reached its climax, and Jeffrey and Cora found themselves at the center of a massive energy confluence. Power surged through their bodies, triggering a further evolution in their hybrid physiology. Their minds connected on a deeper level, their understanding of the progenitor technology expanding exponentially. With a final burst of effort, the core stabilized. The chamber fell silent, save for the low hum of well-regulated energy. Jeffrey and Cora stood motionless, their bodies still aglow with residual power, as the realization of what they had accomplished washed over them. "We did it," Jeffrey breathed, his voice filled with a mixture of exhaustion and exhilaration. Cora nodded, a smile playing at her lips. "But our work is nowhere near the end." As they prepared to lead their team back to the surface, they discovered that the planet's interior landscape had changed. New passages had opened, while others had sealed shut. "This way," Cora said, her newfound connection to Nova Harmonia guiding her through the altered tunnels. The team followed, trusting in their hybrid leaders as they navigated the unknown terrain. Each new chamber they passed through revealed more about the progenitor's technology and the true potential of their new home. As they neared the surface, they encountered a search party led by Admiral Frost. The Admiral's eyes widened as he took in the sight of the glowing hybrid leaders and their diverse alien team. "Jeffrey? Cora? What happened down there?" Frost asked, his voice a mixture of concern and awe. Jeffrey and Cora exchanged a look, knowing that the true magnitude of their experience would take time to explain. "It's a long story, Admiral," Jeffrey said, "but I think it's one that everyone needs to hear." As they emerged from the planet's depths, they were greeted by a sea of anxious faces, colonists and alien visitors alike, all eager for news. Jeffrey and Cora stood before them, their bodies still shimmering with energy, ready to address the gathered masses and usher in a new era for Nova Harmonia. The crowd fell silent, waiting with suspenseful pause for their leaders to speak. Jeffrey took a deep breath, preparing to explain the incredible journey they had just undertaken and the monumental changes that lay ahead. The future of their multi-species civilization hung on his next words. Words. The future of their multi-species civilization hung on his next breath. Jeffrey opened his mouth to speak, but before he could utter a word, a strange sensation overtook him. A collective gasp rippled through the crowd as Jeffrey's skin began to shimmer with an otherworldly light. Intricate, luminescent patterns reminiscent of Elysian markings spread across his arms and face. Beside him, Cora's hair took on a mesmerizing, fiber-optic quality, each strand shimmering with an inner light. Murmurs of awe and confusion swept through the gathered masses. Jeffrey glanced at Cora, seeing his own surprise mirrored in her eyes. They shared a brief, silent moment of understanding before turning back to address the crowd. Friends, allies, fellow inhabitants of Nova Harmonia, Jeffrey began, his voice steady despite the unexpected changes. We've just returned from a mission deep within the planet's core. The instability that threatened our home has been neutralized. Cora stepped forward, her shimmering hair catching the light. But that's not all we discovered. Beneath the surface, we found something extraordinary. Surviving progenitors, the creators of this world and the architects of our shared destiny. The announcement sent shock waves through the crowd. Humans whispered among themselves, while the alien visitors chittered and hummed in their native languages. Admiral Frost, standing at the front of the gathering, furrowed his brow, clearly processing the implications of this revelation. These changes you see in us, Jeffrey continued, gesturing to his glowing skin, are a result of our interaction with the planet's core and the progenitor technology. They represent a deeper connection to Nova Harmonia and to each other. As Jeffrey and Cora explained the details of their mission, the crowd's reactions varied wildly. Some viewed the changes with excitement, seeing them as a step towards a unified future. Others recoiled, fear of the unknown evident in their expressions. Admiral Frost, ever the pragmatist, recognized the potential for unrest. He stepped forward, his authoritative presence immediately commanding attention. In light of these extraordinary developments, I propose we convene an emergency council meeting, Frost announced. We need representatives from all species present on Nova Harmonia to discuss our path forward. Within hours, the newly formed Interspecies Council gathered in the colony's main administrative building. Jeffrey and Cora, still glowing with residual energy, sat at the head of the table as co-chairs. Around them, a diverse array of beings took their seats. Humans, Elysians, Zephyrians, and representatives from other newly arrived alien species. As the council began to discuss the implications of the recent discoveries, the room's atmosphere grew tense. Debates over the ethical implications of genetic manipulation and the role of the progenitors in their shared future threatened to derail the proceedings. Suddenly, the council chamber's doors slid open, revealing a group of beings that could only be the awakened progenitors. Their appearance was a striking blend of organic and technological elements, with bodies that seemed to shift and adapt even as they moved. At the forefront stood Elder ZYX, an imposing figure whose eyes held the wisdom of millennia. The room fell silent as ZYX approached the council table. Greetings, children of many worlds. ZYX's voice resonated in their minds. We have much to discuss about Nova Harmonia's true purpose and your roles in the cosmic tapestry. As Elder ZYX began to explain the planet's original design as a refuge and testing ground for creating an adaptable, hybrid species, Jeffrey and Cora found themselves overwhelmed by a sudden influx of information. Their newfound connection to Nova Harmonia allowed them to access vast databanks of knowledge, providing real-time context to ZYX's words. Cora gripped the edge of the table, her knuckles tightening as she struggled to process the torrent of data flooding her mind. Jeffrey placed a steadying hand on her shoulder, his own body trembling with the effort of containing the information surge. Nova Harmonia was created to be a crucible, Elder ZYX continued, oblivious to the hybrid leader's discomfort. A place where diverse species could come together, adapt, and evolve into beings capable of facing universal threats. As the council grappled with this revelation, alarms blared throughout the colony. A holographic display materialized in the center of the room, showing a series of explosions at key infrastructure points. Admiral Frost jumped to his feet. "It's Vance and Zinder's followers. They've launched a coordinated attack on our systems." Jeffrey forced himself to focus through the haze of information still clouding his mind. We need a team to counter these threats. Not just humans or Elysians, but a force comprised of all our species, working together. The proposal met with immediate resistance from some council members. Arguments erupted over issues of autonomy and trust between species. As the debate raged on, Cora suddenly stiffened, her eyes going wide. "There's something else," she said, her voice tight with concern. "The planet's sensors have detected an approaching asteroid field. If we don't act quickly, Nova Harmonia will be in grave danger." The council fell silent, the weight of this new threat hanging heavy in the air. Jeffrey stood, his glowing skin pulsing with commitment. "This is our chance to prove what we can accomplish together," he declared. "We need to assemble a team immediately. Each of our species has unique abilities that, combined, could be the key to our survival." As the council grudgingly agreed to Jeffrey's plan, he turned to Cora. "I'll lead the team to divert the asteroids. Can you stay here and coordinate from the ground? Your connection to the planet's systems will be crucial." Cora nodded, though concern flickered in her eyes. "Be careful out there, Jeffrey. This constant data stream is challenging to manage. I'm not sure how long I can maintain it." Within the hour, a hybrid ship stood ready for launch, its sleek design a testament to the combined technological prowess of multiple species. Jeffrey stood at the helm, surrounded by a diverse crew chosen for their complementary skills. As the ship lifted off, heading towards the looming threat of the asteroid field, Jeffrey couldn't shake a sense of foreboding. The fate of Nova Harmonia and their fledgling multi-species civilization rested on the success of this mission. And somewhere in the back of his mind, a nagging voice whispered that the true test was yet to come. "Come." As Jeffrey finished his thought, alarms blared throughout the colony, jolting everyone to attention. The holographic display in the center of the room flickered to life, revealing a series of explosions at key infrastructure points. Admiral Frost's voice cut through the chaos. "It's Vance and Zinder's followers. They've launched a coordinated attack on our systems." Jeffrey shook off the lingering effects of the information overload and focused on the immediate threat. We need a team to counter these attacks. Not just humans or Elysians, but a force comprised of all our species, working together. Before the council could fully process Jeffrey's proposal, Cora stiffened, her eyes widening with alarm. "There's something else," she said, her voice tight with concern. "The planet's sensors have detected an approaching asteroid field. If we don't act quickly, Nova Harmonia will be in grave danger." A heavy silence fell over the room as the weight of this new threat settled upon them. Jeffrey stood, his glowing skin pulsing with purpose. "This is our chance to prove what we can accomplish together," he declared. "We need to assemble a team immediately to deal with this asteroid threat." Within the hour, Jeffrey found himself at the helm of a hybrid ship, its sleek design a testament to the combined technological prowess of multiple species. As they approached the looming asteroid field, Jeffrey's sense of foreboding grew. The fate of Nova Harmonia rested on their success. As they neared the largest asteroid, a planet killer capable of devastating Nova Harmonia, Jeffrey ordered the deployment of the ship's deflector technology. The crew watched in tense silence as the energy field enveloped the massive celestial body. Seconds ticked by, each moment stretching into eternity. Suddenly, the deflector field flickered and died, leaving the asteroid's trajectory unchanged. "It's not working," shouted Aura, the Zephyrian navigator, her bioluminescent skin pulsing with agitation. Jeffrey's mind raced, analyzing their options. With a deep breath, he made a decision that would change the course of their mission. "We're going to land on that asteroid," he announced, his voice steady despite the audacity of his plan. We'll plan explosive charges to fragment it into smaller, manageable pieces. The crew exchanged nervous glances, but quickly moved to comply with Jeffrey's orders. As they approached the asteroid's surface, the ship bucked and shuddered, struggling against the unpredictable gravitational forces. "Brace for impact," Jeffrey called out as they made contact with the rocky terrain. The ship's anchoring systems engaged, barely managing to secure their position on the unstable surface. Jeffrey led a small, diverse team out onto the asteroid. Each member carried specialized equipment designed for their unique physiologies. Aura's bioluminescent abilities proved invaluable as they navigated the treacherous landscape, her glow revealing structural weaknesses in the asteroid's composition. "Plant the charges here, and here," Jeffrey instructed, pointing to the spots Aura had identified. The team worked efficiently, their movements hampered by the asteroid's low gravity and unpredictable terrain. As they placed a final charge, a burst of static filled their communication channels. Jeffrey tapped his earpiece, trying to re-establish contact with Nova Harmonia. "Cora, do you read me?" Only silence answered him. A quick glance at his team confirmed they were experiencing the same issue. "A solar flare must be interfering with our comms," Jeffrey realized aloud. "We're on our own for this one." Back on Nova Harmonia, Cora struggled to maintain her connection to the planet's systems. Each passing moment brought waves of intense pain, threatening to overwhelm her. Through gritted teeth, she forced herself to focus, knowing that the information she provided could mean the difference between success and failure for Jeffrey's team. On the asteroid, Jeffrey made a quick decision. "Everyone back to the ship. Now!" he ordered, his enhanced physiology allowing him to bound across the rocky surface with ease. Once the team was safely aboard, Jeffrey input the detonation sequence, relying on his military training and newly enhanced intuition to time it perfectly. The explosions rocked the asteroid, fracturing it into smaller pieces. As the debris field expanded around them, Jeffrey took manual control of the ship. "Hold on tight," he warned his crew. "This is going to be a rough ride." The hybrid vessel darted and weaved through the cloud of tumbling rocks, its deflector shields straining against the onslaught. Jeffrey's hands flew over the controls, his enhanced reflexes pushing the ship to its limits. On Nova Harmonia, Cora collapsed, the strain of maintaining her connection finally overwhelming her. Admiral Frost rushed to her side, quickly assessing the situation. "Activate the planetary shield," she commanded, her voice carrying the full weight of her authority. As Jeffrey's ship emerged from the debris field, the crew witnessed an awe-inspiring sight. Nova Harmonia shimmered as an iridescent barrier encapsulated the entire planet, its energy patterns mirroring the luminescent markings on Jeffrey's skin. Their immediate mission accomplished, Jeffrey set a course for home. However, their victory had come at a cost. Warning lights flashed across the ship's control panel, indicating severe damage to multiple systems. "We're losing altitude control," Aura reported, her fingers dancing over her console. "The atmospheric entry is going to be rough." Jeffrey closed his eyes, reaching out with his mind to connect with the ship's systems. He felt the familiar surge of energy flow through him, guiding his actions as he wrestled with the failing controls. The ship plummeted through Nova Harmonia's atmosphere, its hull glowing red-hot from the friction. Jeffrey's enhanced connection allowed him to push the engines beyond their normal limits, slowing their descent just enough to avoid a catastrophic impact. With a bone-jarring thud, the ship skidded to a halt on the outskirts of the main settlement. As the dust settled, Jeffrey unbuckled himself from the pilot's seat, his body aching from the strain of the landing. "Everyone okay?" he called out, receiving a chorus of affirmative responses from his battered but alive crew. As they emerged from the ship, they were greeted by cheering crowds of colonists and aliens alike. The diverse inhabitants of Nova Harmonia had witnessed their daring mission and remarkable teamwork, igniting a new sense of unity among the various species. Jeffrey scanned the crowd, searching for Cora. When he didn't see her, a knot of worry formed in his stomach. "Where's Queen Cora?" he asked Admiral Frost, who had approached to congratulate him. Frost's expression turned grave. "She's in the medical facility." The strain of maintaining her connection to the planet systems. It was too much. Without another word, Jeffrey took off running towards the medical center, his enhanced physiology allowing him to cover the distance in record time. As he burst through the doors, he saw Cora lying motionless on a bed, surrounded by a team of multi-species medical professionals. Jeffrey approached her bedside, his heart racing. As he reached out to touch her hand, he felt a familiar surge of energy. A soft, pulsating light began to flow between them, visible to the astonished medical staff. "What's happening?" one of the human doctors asked, his voice filled with a mixture of awe and concern. Jeffrey shook his head, unable to explain the phenomenon. All he knew was that he needed to stay by Cora's side, to help her through whatever transformation their hybrid physiology was undergoing. As news of their successful mission spread throughout the colony, the Interspecies Council convened an emergency session to discuss the implications of recent events. The activation of the planetary shield and the continuing evolution of Jeffrey and Cora's abilities raised new questions about the future of their multi-species civilization. Elder ZYX, the progenitor leader, stepped forward with a proposal that would change the course of their society forever. "We must consider initiating a controlled hybridization program," he announced, his words sending ripples of shock through the assembled council members. As the debate over this controversial suggestion began to heat up, Jeffrey stirred from his vigil at Cora's bedside. His enhanced connection to the planet had accelerated his recovery, and he felt a pressing need to join the council meeting. With a final glance at Cora's still form, Jeffrey made his way to the council chambers. Knowing that his unique perspective as one of the first successful hybrids would be crucial in shaping the future of Nova Harmonia. As he approached the council chambers, Jeffrey's enhanced senses picked up the heated debate already in progress. He took a deep breath, steeling himself for the challenging discussions ahead. Just as Jeffrey reached for the door, a familiar voice called out behind him. "Jeffrey, wait." He turned to see Dr. Alara, the lead physician from the medical facility, hurrying towards him. Her multi-hued scales shimmered with excitement as she caught up to him. "It's Queen Cora," Dr. Alara said, her words tumbling out in a rush. "She's awake, and her recovery is remarkable." Without hesitation, Jeffrey sprinted back to the medical facility, his enhanced physiology allowing him to cover the distance in mere moments. As he burst through the doors, he saw Cora sitting up in her bed, surrounded by a team of astonished medical professionals. Cora's eyes met his, and Jeffrey felt his breath catch in his throat. Her gaze now held a mesmerizing blend of human and Elysian characteristics, the irises swirling with an otherworldly light. "Jeffrey," Cora said, her voice strong despite her recent ordeal. "What's happening to us?" He moved to her side, taking her hand in his. As their skin made contact, a soft, pulsating light emanated from the point of connection, spreading up their arms and across their bodies. Dr. Alara stepped forward, her scientific curiosity evident in her voice. "Your hybrid physiology is evolving at an accelerated rate. The energy exchange between you two seems to be catalyzing further changes." Jeffrey glanced down at his own skin, noticing a subtle, shimmering quality that wasn't there before. It reminded him of the bioluminescent patterns on Elysian skin. "We need to get to the council meeting," Cora said, swinging her legs over the side of the bed. "They're discussing the hybridization program, aren't they?" Jeffrey nodded, offering his arm for support as Cora stood. To his surprise, she moved with fluid grace, as if she had never been injured. As they made their way to the council chambers, Jeffrey quickly briefed Cora on the situation. The corridors buzzed with activity. colonists of various species, casting curious glances at the pair as they passed. They entered the council chamber, just as Elder ZYX was reiterating his proposal for a controlled hybridization program. The room fell silent as all eyes turned to Jeffrey and Cora. Admiral Frost was the first to speak. "Queen Cora, we're relieved to see you recovered. Your input on this matter is crucial." Before Cora could respond, alarms blared throughout the colony. A holographic display materialized in the center of the room, showing a small fleet of unmarked ships entering the system. "They're not responding to hails," reported a Zephyrian communications officer, her bioluminescent skin pulsing with agitation. Jeffrey stepped forward, his military training kicking in. "Admiral Frost, we need to mobilize our hybrid ships. Cora, can you use your connection to the planet to reinforce our shields?" Cora nodded, closing her eyes in concentration. The room hummed with energy as she interfaced with Nova Harmonia systems. As Jeffrey coordinated the defense efforts, a new voice cut through the chaos. "Wait, those ships. I recognize their energy signatures." All eyes turned to Lyra, a charismatic Zephyrian who had been advocating for a more aggressive approach to hybridization. Her antenna quivered as she studied the holographic display. "They're refugees," Lyra explained. "Humans and Elysians who fled during the initial conflict." The revelation sent a ripple of murmurs through the council chamber. Jeffrey's mind raced, considering the implications of this unexpected arrival. "Open a channel," he ordered. The communications officer complied, and a familiar face appeared on the screen. "Captain Thorne," Jeffrey said, recognizing his former colleague. "It's been a long time." Thorne's weathered face showed a mixture of relief and wariness. "Jeffrey, we've come seeking asylum. Our people have nowhere else to go." As Jeffrey and Cora exchanged glances, they both realized the opportunity this presented. These refugees could be the key to advancing their hybridization program and proving its potential to the skeptics. "Captain Thorne," Cora said, stepping forward, "we welcome you and your people to Nova Harmonia. However, we must discuss the terms of your asylum." Thorne's expression tightened. "Terms? We're not in a position to negotiate, Your Majesty. We're desperate." Jeffrey intervened, his voice calm but firm. "What Queen Cora means is that we have a proposal that could benefit both your people and our colony. We'd like to discuss it face to face." As arrangements were made for Thorne and his representatives to shuttle down to the colony, Jeffrey noticed movement in his peripheral vision. Colonel Vance and Lady Zindra, the detained extremist leaders, were being escorted past the council chambers under heavy guard. Vance's eyes locked with Jeffrey's for a moment, a look of pure hatred flashing across his face. Jeffrey felt a chill run down his spine, sensing that this was far from finished. With the refugees' arrival imminent and the hybridization debate still on perseverance, Jeffrey and Cora prepared to face their next challenge. Little did they know that deep beneath their feet, in the very core of Nova Harmonia, ancient progenitor technology was stirring, awakened by their recent actions. The planet itself was about to become an active participant in their grand experiment, with consequences that would reshape not just their colony, but potentially the entire galaxy. As Jeffrey and Cora prepared to address the colony about the refugees' arrival and the proposed hybridization program, an ominous silence fell over the gathered crowd. The air crackled with tension, a palpable unease spreading through the diverse assembly of humans, Elysians, and other species. Suddenly, a deafening explosion rocked the central administrative complex. Alarms blared as smoke billowed from the east wing. Jeffrey's enhanced senses immediately picked up the acrid scent of burning circuitry and the unmistakable energy signature of progenitor technology. "We're under attack," he shouted, instinctively pulling Cora behind a nearby pillar as debris rained down around them. Through the chaos, Jeffrey caught a glimpse of familiar faces moving with military precision. His heart sank as he recognized Colonel Vance and Lady Zindra leading a group of heavily armed extremists. How did they escape? Cora asked, her voice steady despite the shock evident in her eyes. Jeffrey's mind raced, assessing the situation. They must have had inside help. We need to mobilize our defenses now. He tapped his comm device, connecting to Admiral Frost. Admiral, we have a code red. Extremists have breached the complex. Activate all security protocols and assemble a mixed-species response team immediately. Frost's voice crackled through the comm. Understood. I'm dispatching units now. What's your status? Queen Cora and I are pinned down near the main hall. We need to get to the control room, Jeffrey replied, scanning the area for a safe route. Cora closed her eyes, concentrating intensely. The air around her shimmered with an otherworldly energy. I'm connecting to the colony systems. I'll try to restore power to the defensive measures. As Cora worked, Jeffrey coordinated with the incoming security forces. Human soldiers moved in tandem with the Legion energy wielders, while Zephyrian scouts provided aerial reconnaissance. The extremists pressed their advantage, using stolen progenitor tech to disrupt communications and bypass security checkpoints. Jeffrey led a group of hybrid soldiers in a flanking maneuver, using his enhanced abilities to anticipate enemy movements. Plasma bolts sizzled through the air as Jeffrey's team engaged a group of extremists attempting to breach the research wing. The acrid smell of ozone filled the corridor as energy weapons discharged, leaving scorch marks on the walls. Thereafter, the hybridization technology, Jeffrey realized, ducking behind a fallen support beam. He tapped his comm again. Captain Thorne, do you read me? Your ships are likely targets. Secure the experimental tech immediately. Thorne's gruff voice came through, punctuated by the sound of weapons fire. Already on it, Jeffrey. We've got hostiles at the landing bay. Could use some backup. Jeffrey split his forces, sending half to reinforce Thorne while he led the rest toward the central control room. As they fought their way through the complex, he saw the full extent of the damage. Shattered glass crunched underfoot, and the air was thick with smoke and the cries of the injured. In the control room, Cora stood at the center of a holographic display, her eyes glowing with an eerie light as she interfaced directly with Nova Harmonia systems. Sweat beaded on her forehead, and her fingers trembled as she manipulated the colony's defenses. Jeffrey, she said, her voice strained, I've managed to reactivate most of our security measures, but it's taking a toll. There's something different about the planet's energy. It's resisting me. Before Jeffrey could respond, the comm system crackled to life. Ambassador Zora's usually composed voice was tinged with panic. This is the Galactic Conclave delegation. We're under attack. Extremists are attempting to seize our ship. Jeffrey cursed under his breath. The situation was escalating beyond their control. Ambassador, hold tight. I'm sending a team to your location now. As he coordinated the response, a new alert flashed across the holographic display. Jeffrey's blood ran cold as he read the message. Cora, we have a problem, he said, his voice grim. The extremists have stolen a crucial component of the hybridization device. If they figure out how to use it. Cora nodded, understanding the implications. Go. Stop them. I'll manage things from here. Jeffrey hesitated, noting the strain on Cora's face. But there was no time to argue. He gathered a small team of his most skilled hybrid soldiers and set off in pursuit of the extremists. The chase led them deep into Nova Harmonia's subterranean network, through winding tunnels carved by ancient progenitor machines. The air grew thick and humid, charged with an energy that made Jeffrey's skin tingle. They emerged into a vast chamber, its walls covered in pulsating bioluminescent patterns. At the center stood a massive progenitor device, its purpose unknown but its power undeniable. Colonel Vance and Lady Zindra were there, working feverishly to connect the stolen component. "Step away from the device," Jeffrey shouted, his team fanning out behind him. Vance turned, his face contorted with hatred. "You're too late, freak. We're going to undo the abomination you've created." As Jeffrey's team exchanged fire with the extremists, the chamber's energy levels began to spike. The stolen component connected with the progenitor device, sending arcs of crackling energy across the room. Reality itself seemed to warp and twist around them. Gravity fluctuated wildly, sending combatants floating one moment and crashing to the ground the next. The walls rippled like water, and echoes of past and future events flashed before their eyes. In the chaos, Vance managed to activate the device. A blinding pulse of energy erupted from its core, racing through the planet's systems. Jeffrey felt the shockwave pass through him, momentarily disrupting his enhanced senses. As the energy pulse subsided, Jeffrey found himself face to face with Vance. The colonel's eyes widened in surprise as Jeffrey's fist connected with his jaw, sending him sprawling. With the extremist leader subdued, Jeffrey turned his attention to the progenitor device. Its surface was alive with swirling patterns of light, and he could feel waves of energy radiating from it. His calm crackled to life, Admiral Frost's voice filled with urgency. "Jeffrey, we're detecting massive seismic disturbances across the planet. Whatever you did down there, it's having some serious side effects." Jeffrey's mind raced. "Cora," he breathed, suddenly remembering her connection to the planet systems. He turned to his team. "Secure the prisoners in this chamber. I need to get back to the surface." As he raced through the tunnels, feeling the ground shake beneath his feet, Jeffrey couldn't shake the feeling that they had just opened a Pandora's box. Whatever the progenitor device had awakened within Nova Harmonia, he knew their hybrid civilization would never be the same. Jeffrey's heart raced as he sprinted through the tunnels, the ground trembling beneath his feet. He burst into the central administrative complex, his enhanced senses immediately assaulted by the chaos unfolding around him. Alarms blared incessantly as colony members rushed in all directions, their faces etched with panic. Jeffrey spotted Admiral Frost coordinating evacuation efforts near a large holographic display of Nova Harmonia. "Admiral, status report," Jeffrey called out, his voice cutting through the din. Frost turned, his weathered face grim. "It's bad, Jeffrey. We got widespread seismic activity across the planet. Several residential sectors are already compromised." Jeffrey nodded, his mind racing. "We need to establish a command center here. Get me real-time data on all affected areas and available resources." As Frost relayed orders to his staff, Jeffrey's thoughts turned to Queen Cora. He tapped his comm device. "DR. Alara, what's Cora's condition?" The doctor's voice crackled through, strained and worried. "Not good, Jeffrey. Her body is undergoing rapid changes we can't explain or control. You should get down here as soon as possible." Torn between his duties and his concern for Cora, Jeffrey made a quick decision. "I'll be there soon. Keep me updated." Over the next few hours, Jeffrey worked tirelessly to coordinate the crisis response. He dispatched hybrid teams to reinforce unstable structures, organize relief efforts for displaced colonists, and work with Zephyrian engineers to reroute power to critical systems. As he moved through the complex, Jeffrey noticed strange phenomena manifesting around him. Objects floated momentarily before crashing to the ground, and ethereal patterns of light danced along the walls, interfering with communication devices. "Sir," a young technician called out, her eyes wide with alarm. "We're detecting massive energy fluctuations across the planet's surface. They're disrupting our evac operations." Jeffrey leaned over her console, studying the readouts. The energy patterns were unlike anything he'd seen before, pulsing in sync with Nova Harmonia's core. "Redirect our shuttles to avoid the worst anomalies," he ordered. "And get me a direct line to Captain Thorne. We need those refugee ships to assist with evacuations. As the crisis deepened, Jeffrey finally found a moment to visit the medical facility. The moment he stepped through the doors, he felt a strange resonance within his body. Dr. Alara rushed to meet him, her lab coat stained with sweat and what looked like bioluminescent fluid. "Jeffrey, thank goodness you're here. Cora's condition is, well, see for yourself." They approached Cora's bed, and Jeffrey gasped. The queen's skin was covered in intricate, glowing patterns that shifted and pulsed. Her eyes were closed, but her body trembled with hardly restrained energy. As Jeffrey moved closer, he noticed the patterns on Cora's skin seemed to stabilize. Dr. Alara's eyes widened. "Fascinating. Your presence appears to have a calming effect on her physiology." Before Jeffrey could respond, his comm device buzzed urgently. "Jeffrey, this is Frost. We've got unidentified ships entering the system. Long-range sensors indicate advanced cloaking technology. We need you back at command immediately." Jeffrey hesitated, looking at Cora's unconscious form. Dr. Alara nodded understanding. "Go. We'll continue monitoring her condition and notify you of any changes." Racing back to the command center, Jeffrey's mind whirled with possibilities. The activation of the progenitor device, Cora's transformation, and now these mysterious ships, it all had to be connected somehow. He burst into the command center, immediately taking in the tense atmosphere. Admiral Frost stood before a large tactical display, his face illuminated by the ominous red dots representing the approaching fleet. "What's our status?" Jeffrey asked, moving to stand beside Frost. The Admiral's voice was grim. "Unknown number of vessels, but their energy signatures are off the charts. They'll be within weapons range in less than an hour." Jeffrey's enhanced mind raced through their options. Activate the planetary defense systems. And get me aura from the Zephyrian engineering team. We need to boost our shields now. As the command center buzzed with activity, Jeffrey felt the weight of responsibility pressing down on him. With Cora incapacitated, the fate of Nova Harmonia, and perhaps the future of human-alien relations, rested squarely on his shoulders. He stared at the approaching fleet on the tactical display, his hybrid physiology humming with nervous energy. Whatever challenges lay ahead, Jeffrey knew that the true test of their fledgling hybrid civilization was just beginning. The air in the command center crackled with tension as Jeffrey analyzed the tactical display, his hybrid physiology heightening his senses and processing power. "Admiral, we need to buy ourselves more time," Jeffrey said, his eyes never leaving the approaching fleet. "Activate our outer defense grid and prepare for potential evasive maneuvers." As Frost relayed the orders, Jeffrey's comm device buzzed urgently. Dr. Alara's voice came through, breathless with excitement. "Jeffrey, you need to get down here immediately. It's Cora, she's awake, and, well, you have to see this for yourself." Torn between his duties at the command center and his concern for Cora, Jeffrey made a split-second decision. "Admiral, you have command. I need to check on the Queen." Frost nodded grimly. "Go. We'll hold the fort here." Jeffrey sprinted through the corridors, his enhanced muscles propelling him at incredible speeds. He burst into the medical facility, skidding to a halt as he saw Cora sitting upright in her bed, her skin still pulsing with bioluminescent patterns. "Jeffrey," she said, her voice resonating with newfound strength. "Something's changed. I can feel the planet. It's like we're connected somehow." As Jeffrey approached, he felt a strange resonance within his own body. The patterns on his skin began to glow in sync with Cora's. Dr. Alara watched in fascination, her scientific curiosity overriding her concern. "It seems the activation of the progenitor device has accelerated your hybrid transformation," she explained, running a scanner over both of them. "Your genetic structures are stabilizing at an unprecedented rate." Before they could discuss further, The ground beneath them shuddered violently. Jeffrey's calm crackled to life with Admiral Frost's voice. "Jeffrey, we're detecting massive geological disturbances across the planet. Whatever that device did, it's having some serious side effects." Cora's eyes widened. "I can feel it. The planet is changing." Without warning, alarms blared throughout the complex. Jeffrey helped Cora to her feet, surprised at how steady she seemed despite her recent condition. "We need to get to the command center," he said. "If what you're feeling is accurate, we might be the key to understanding what's happening to Nova Harmonia." As they made their way through the corridors, they were met with a mix of awe and concern from the colonists they passed. Their glowing skin and the visible energy coursing through them were impossible to ignore. Upon entering the command center, they found it in a state of controlled chaos. Admiral Frost was coordinating evacuation efforts, while Captain Thorne worked with Zephyrian engineers to stabilize the colony's power grid. "Report," Jeffrey called out as he and Cora approached the central holographic display. Frost turned, his expression a mix of relief and worry. "It's not good. We've got widespread seismic activity, energy anomalies forming in various regions, and to top it off, those unidentified ships are now in orbit." Jeffrey nodded, his mind racing. "We need to call an emergency meeting of the Interspecies Council. Whatever's happening, it's affecting all of us." As key members of the council gathered, Dr. Lara presented her findings on the terraforming protocol initiated by the progenitor device. The revelation that Nova Harmonia's environment was gradually shifting to better accommodate hybrid life forms sparked intense debate. Ambassador Zora's eyes narrowed as she studied the tactical display. "Those ships, I recognize their energy signatures. They belong to the Nexus Imperium." A hush fell over the room. Jeffrey's fist clenched. "The genetic purists? What are they doing here?" "They must have detected the unusual energy signatures from our planet," Zora explained. "The Imperium sees themselves as guardians of genetic purity across the galaxy. Our hybridization efforts represent everything they stand against." As if on cue, the tactical display lit up with incoming fire from the Imperium fleet. Jeffrey's hybrid reflexes kicked in, his voice cutting through the sudden panic. "Activate planetary defenses. Shields to maximum." The newly upgraded defense systems, a blend of human, Elysian, and progenitor technologies, sprang to life. Energy barriers shimmered into existence around Nova Harmonia, successfully repelling the initial assault. Cora stepped forward, her eyes glowing with an inner light. "We can't just defend. We need to show the entire galaxy, what we've accomplished here." Jeffrey met her gaze, understanding dawning. "The hybridization technology from Captain Thorne's refugees. If we combine it with our connection to the planet's systems, we could accelerate Nova Harmonia's transformation," Cora finished. "Create a true haven for hybrid life." The council erupted into heated discussion, weighing the risks and potential benefits of such a bold move. In the end, faced with the imminent threat of the Nexus Imperium, they agreed to proceed. Captain Thorne and his team worked feverishly to modify the hybridization device, integrating it with the progenitor technology found in the underground chambers. Meanwhile, Jeffrey and Cora prepared to act as conduits for the planet-wide transformation. As they took their positions at key energy nexus points around Nova Harmonia, Jeffrey felt a mix of anticipation and trepidation. He looked at Cora, her skin pulsing with the same energy that coursed through him. "Ready?" he asked. She nodded, a determined smile on her face. "Let's show the galaxy what humanity and its allies are truly capable of." With a signal to the command center, the modified hybridization device activated. A surge of energy unlike anything Jeffrey had ever experienced flooded through him. He gasped, feeling as if every cell in his body was being rewritten and enhanced. The energy pulse spread outward, encompassing the entire planet. The ground beneath them shuddered, then gradually began to stabilize. The chaotic energy anomalies coalesced into a network of luminescent patterns crisscrossing Nova Harmonia's surface. Through his enhanced senses, Jeffrey could feel the changes rippling across the planet. The atmosphere shifted, becoming more conducive to hybrid life. Flora and fauna began to adapt, taking on new forms that bridge the gap between species. In orbit, the energy wave from Nova Harmonia's transformation collided with the Nexus Imperium fleet. Several ships lost power, drifting helplessly in space. Admiral Frost seized the opportunity, launching a coordinated attack with Nova Harmonia's hybrid defense forces. As the battle raged above, Jeffrey and Cora worked tirelessly to stabilize the planet's core and manage the ongoing hybridization process. Their enhanced connection to Nova Harmonia's systems allowed them to make real-time adjustments, ensuring the safety of the colonists and the success of the transformation. Hours passed in a blur of activity. Finally, the immediate crisis began to subside. The Nexus Imperium fleet, caught off guard by the unexpected power of Nova Harmonia's defenses and the hybridization process, began to retreat. Jeffrey and Cora stood atop the central administrative complex, overlooking the transformed landscape of their new home. The planet's surface was now crisscrossed with glowing energy patterns, mirroring those on their own skin. In the distance, new hybrid life forms could be seen emerging from the altered ecosystem. "We did it," Cora breathed, her voice filled with wonder. Jeffrey nodded, but his expression remained serious. "This is just the beginning. The Imperium will be back, and we've changed the game for the entire galaxy." As if to underscore his words, a technician approached with an urgent report. "Long-range sensors are detecting additional Imperium ships approaching the system, sir." Jeffrey and Cora exchanged a determined look. They had overcome the immediate threat, but the true test of their fledgling hybrid civilization was yet to come. As the sun set on the transformed Nova Harmonia, they began to plan their next move in the fight for their future. As the sun set on the transformed Nova Harmonia, they began to plan their next move in the fight for their newfound hybrid civilization. The following days saw a flurry of activity as Jeffrey and Cora worked tirelessly to stabilize the rapidly evolving planet. The luminescent patterns that had first appeared during the transformation continued to spread across Nova Harmonia's surface, growing more intricate and interconnected with each passing hour. Jeffrey stood at the command center's main viewport, his eyes tracing the glowing lines that crisscrossed the landscape. "These patterns aren't random," he muttered, his hybrid mind processing the information at an accelerated rate. "They're forming some kind of network." Cora joined him, her own skin pulsing in sync with the planet's new energy signature. "You're right. I can feel it. It's like the planet is creating its own nervous system." As they watched, the glowing lines began to converge at specific points across the globe, forming brightly shining nodes that pulse with power. Jeffrey's tactical instincts kicked in immediately. "We need to secure those locations," he said, turning to Admiral Frost. "Set up research outposts at each node, and get Captain Thorne on it. His experience with the hybridization tech will be crucial." Frost nodded, already issuing orders through his comm device. "What about the colonists? We're getting reports of unusual developments." Dr. Alara stepped forward, her face a mix of excitement and concern. "The hybridization process is continuing to affect our people. We're seeing enhanced physical attributes, and some are even manifesting energy manipulation abilities similar to the Elysians." Cora's eyes widened. "We need to help them understand and control these changes. Jeffrey, can you establish a training program?" He nodded, his mind already formulating plans. "I'll get on it right away. In the meantime, we need to convene the Interspecies Council. These developments will have far-reaching implications." The council chamber buzzed with tension as representatives from each species gathered to discuss the rapidly changing situation. Ambassador Zora was in the middle of a heated debate with a Zephyrian delegate when her comm device chimed urgently. The room fell silent as she read the message, her expression growing grave. "We have a situation," she announced. "The Galactic Conclave has caught wind of our transformation. News is spreading fast, and various factions are expressing interest in our hybridization process." Jeffrey and Cora exchanged glances. "We need to control the narrative," Cora said. "Show the galaxy what we've accomplished here." "A summit," Jeffrey suggested. "We invite representatives from across the galaxy to Nova Harmonia. Let them see our hybrid society firsthand." The council erupted into a cacophony of voices, some supportive, others wary. In the end, the decision was made to proceed with the Galactic Summit. Admiral Frost was tasked with coordinating security, working closely with the newly formed Hybrid Defense Forces. As preparations for the summit began, Nova Harmonia experienced another wave of changes. The energy network connecting the surface nodes intensified, causing sporadic fluctuations in local gravity and electromagnetic fields. Communication systems sputtered, and transportation became unreliable. Jeffrey found himself in the thick of the chaos, implementing contingency plans and establishing emergency shelters. He worked tirelessly, his hybrid physiology allowing him to push through fatigue. In the medical wing, Cora collaborated with Dr. Lara, using her enhanced connection to the planet's systems to predict and mitigate the effects of the energy fluctuations. "There," she exclaimed, her eyes glowing as she sensed an impending surge. "Divert power to the eastern sector's shields." Dr. Lara relayed the order, watching in amazement as the shields flared to life just in time to absorb a massive energy spike. "Your connection to the planet is growing stronger," she observed. Cora nodded, a mix of wonder and trepidation in her voice. "It's like I can feel every pulse, every shift. And it's not just me. Jeffrey's experiencing it too." As the date of the Galactic Summit drew near, long-range sensors lit up with multiple approaching vessels. Unlike the aggressive approach of the Nexus Imperium, these ships transmitted peaceful intentions. Jeffrey stood in the command center, studying the incoming signals. "They're requesting permission to land," he reported to the assembled council members. One group in particular stands out, a team of rogue scientists led by someone named Dr. Zen. Ambassador Zora's antennae twitched with interest. Dr. Zen is a renowned xenobiologist. His presence could lend credibility to our summit. "Agreed," Cora said, "but we need to be cautious. Jeffrey, can you establish a quarantine protocol for all arriving delegates?" He nodded, already formulating plans. "We'll set up a secure landing zone and screening process. No one sets foot on Nova Harmonia without thorough vetting." As the first ships began their descent, Jeffrey and Cora stood on the observation deck, watching the transformed landscape of their home. The luminescent patterns on their skin pulsed in unison with the planet's energy network, a visible reminder of their unique connection to Nova Harmonia. "Are we ready for this?" Cora asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Jeffrey took her hand, feeling the energy that coursed through both of them. "Ready or not, the galaxy is coming to our doorstep. It's time to show them what humanity and its allies are truly capable of." As if in response to his words, the energy nodes across Nova Harmonia's surface began to pulse, creating a spectacular light show visible from orbit. The approaching ship slowed, their occupants no doubt marveling at the display. Jeffrey and Cora shared a determined look. The Galactic Summit was about to begin, and with it, a new chapter in the history of their hybrid civilization. As they prepared to greet the first delegates, both leaders knew that the challenges ahead would test not only their newfound abilities, but also their vision for a united, diverse future. Galaxy. As the first delegates began to arrive, Jeffrey and Cora's attention was quickly diverted to the myriad challenges that arose with hosting such a diverse group of attendees. The central plaza bustled with activity as beings from across the galaxy disembarked from their ships. Jeffrey observed the scene from a nearby observation platform, his enhanced senses allowing him to process the influx of information with remarkable speed. Security Checkpoint 3 is experiencing delays, he muttered into his comm device. Redirect incoming traffic to Checkpoint 5. Beside him, Cora's skin pulsed with an intense glow as she focused on stabilizing a sudden energy fluctuation near the landing zone. "We need to get these surges under control," she said, her voice strained. "They're disrupting the atmospheric shields." As if on cue, a ripple of energy coursed through the ground, causing several delegates to stumble. Jeffrey's mind raced, formulating a solution. "We need to station hybrid defense forces at the key energy nodes," he said, already sending out the orders via his neural link. Their connection to the planet's systems should help stabilize the fluctuations. Cora nodded in agreement, her attention split between managing the energy surges and greeting the incoming delegates. Among them, a tall, slender figure with iridescent scales caught her eye. "Dr. Zen," she said, extending a hand in greeting. "Welcome to Nova Harmonia." The renowned xenobiologist's eyes widened as he took in the sight of Cora's hybrid form. "Fascinating," he murmured, his scientific curiosity evident. "The extent of your transformation is remarkable." Before Cora could respond, another energy surge rippled through the area. This time, the hybrid defense forces were in position, their bodies glowing as they absorbed and redirected the excess energy. "If you'll follow me, Dr. Zen," Jeffrey said, stepping in smoothly. "We've prepared a secure area for the summit proceedings." As they made their way to the newly constructed conference center, Dr. Zen's gaze darted from the glowing patterns on the ground to the transformed flora surrounding them. "I must say, the changes to your ecosystem are far more extensive than I anticipated." Inside the conference center, delegates from dozens of species filed into the main chamber. Jeffrey took his place at the podium, preparing to officially open the summit. Just as he began to speak, the building's lights flickered ominously. "Ladies, gentlemen, and honored guests," he said, maintaining his composure. "We appreciate your presence here today as we discuss the implications of our recent transformation." As Jeffrey continued his opening remarks, Cora noticed Dr. Zen furiously taking notes on a holographic display. The xenobiologist's expression grew more animated with each passing moment. Suddenly, Dr. Zen stood up, interrupting the proceedings. "Forgive me," he said, his voice trembling with excitement, "but I believe I've made a crucial discovery about the nature of your hybridization process." The chamber fell silent as all eyes turned to Dr. Zen. Jeffrey nodded, granting him permission to continue. "Based on my preliminary observations and scans," Dr. Zen explained, "the genetic changes occurring on Nova Harmonia are far more extensive than initially believed. They're affecting not just sentient beings, but the entire ecosystem, down to the cellular level of every plant and animal species." Murmurs of concern rippled through the assembled delegates. Jeffrey and Cora exchanged a worried glance, aware of the potential implications of this revelation. Before anyone could respond, a technician burst into the chamber, his face pale with urgency. "Admiral Frost requests your immediate presence in the command center," he said, addressing Jeffrey and Cora. "Long-range sensors have detected a massive energy surge at the edge of the system." Without hesitation, Jeffrey and Cora rushed to the command center, leaving the summit in temporary disarray. As they entered the bustling room, Admiral Frost's grim expression confirmed their fears. "We've got incoming," Frost said, gesturing to the main display. "A Nexus Imperium dreadnought, unlike anything we've encountered before." The holographic projection showed a colossal vessel, easily dwarfing the ships from their previous encounter. Its hull bristled with weapon emplacements, and a palpable sense of dread filled the room. "They're launching probes," a sensor technician reported, "attempting to penetrate our defenses." Jeffrey's mind raced, analyzing the situation. "Captain Thorne," he called out, "we need to modify the orbital defense grid, integrate our new hybrid tech to counter their advanced weaponry." As Captain Thorne's team scrambled to implement the changes, Cora closed her eyes, focusing intensely. The room's occupants watched in awe as her skin began to glow brightly, pulsing in rhythm with the planet's energy network. "I'm reinforcing the shields at critical points," she said, her voice strained with effort, creating a layered defense against their attack. Outside, the sky lit up as the first volley from the Imperium dreadnought struck Nova Harmonia's enhanced shields. The impact sent shockwaves through the planet's surface, causing the energy nodes to pulse erratically. Dr. Alara burst into the command center, her face etched with concern. "The Imperium's attacks are resonating with our energy network," she reported. "It's causing dangerous instabilities in the planet's core systems." Jeffrey and Cora shared a look of unshakable focus. They both knew what had to be done, despite the risks involved. "We need to interface directly with Nova Harmonia's core systems," Jeffrey said, his voice resolute. "It's the only way to stabilize the energy network and protect the planet." As they prepared to depart for the central energy node, the command center erupted into a flurry of activity. Admiral Frost coordinated the orbital defenses, while Captain Thorne readied a squadron of newly developed hybrid fighters for a counteroffensive. Jeffrey and Cora made their way to the heart of the main settlement, where a massive crystalline structure had formed around the central energy node. As they approached, their bodies began to glow with intense energy, resonating with the planet's core. "Are you ready?" Jeffrey asked, looking at Cora with a mix of apprehension and purpose. She nodded, her eyes shining with the same fierce commitment. "Let's do this." Together, they stepped into the pulsing heart of Nova Harmonia, their hybrid bodies merging with the planet's energy network. As they fought to stabilize the core systems, the battle raged both in orbit and on the surface, with the fate of their fledgling hybrid civilization hanging in the balance. As the energy pulsed through their bodies, Jeffrey and Cora felt a sudden, overwhelming connection to every aspect of Nova Harmonia's systems. "We need to stabilize the core," Cora gasped, her voice strained as she fought to process the flood of information. Jeffrey nodded, his skin glowing brightly as he focused on redirecting energy flows. "The Imperium's attack is causing cascading failures throughout the network. We need help." Their minds raced in unison, weighing their options. In a split-second decision, they reached out to the planet's communication systems, establishing a secure link to Ambassador Zora. "Ambassador," Jeffrey's voice echoed through the comm channel, "we need the Galactic Conclave's assistance. We're willing to share our hybridization research in exchange for immediate intervention against the Nexus Imperium." Ambassador Zora's reply came swiftly. "Understood. I'm relaying your decision to the Conclave now." As the transmission ended, Jeffrey and Cora disengaged from Nova Harmonia's core. They stumbled away from the pulsing crystalline structure, their bodies visibly drained from the intense connection. "Admiral Frost," Cora called out, her voice hoarse. "The Conclave's peacekeeping fleet is on its way. We need to coordinate our defenses." Admiral Frost's holographic image flickered to life before them. "Understood, Your Majesty. I'm already reconfiguring our orbital defense grid to accommodate their arrival." Jeffrey turned to Captain Thorne, who had just entered the chamber. "Captain, prepare your hybrid fighters for a joint assault. We'll need to integrate the Conclave's forces into our strategy quickly." As they spoke, the sky above Nova Harmonia lit up with the arrival of the Conclave's fleet. Sleek, otherworldly ships slipped into orbit, their advanced weaponry already powering up. In the command center, screens flashed with incoming data as the combined fleet launched its assault on the Imperium dreadnought. Hybrid fighters darted between larger Conclave vessels, their movements a dizzying dance of precision and power. Captain Thorne's voice crackled over the comms. "This is Thorne. We've identified a weakness in the Dreadnought's shields, requesting permission to execute a targeted strike on their main power core." Jeffrey and Cora exchanged a quick glance before responding. "Permission granted, Captain. Be careful out there." On the surface, Dr. Zen and his team worked feverishly to contain the area affected by the accelerated hybridization. Force fields shimmered around the impact site as researchers in environmental suits carefully collected samples of mutating flora and fauna. Dr. Alara joined the effort, her expertise in hybrid physiology proving invaluable. "We're seeing unprecedented rates of genetic recombination," she reported, her eyes wide with a mix of concern and scientific fascination. "These new life forms are adapting faster than we can study them." As the battle raged in orbit, the energy nodes across Nova Harmonia began to stabilize. The erratic pulsations smoothed out, synchronizing with the planet's natural rhythms. Jeffrey and Cora felt the change immediately, their own hybrid physiology resonating with the stabilized network. "The shields," Cora exclaimed. "We can redirect more power to the orbital defenses now." With renewed strength, they channeled energy through the planet's systems, bolstering the protective barrier around the colony and the visiting delegates. In space, Captain Thorne led his squadron on a daring assault. The hybrid fighters wove through a barrage of energy weapons, their enhanced reflexes allowing them to navigate the deadly field of fire. "All units, target the Dreadnought's power core," Thorne commanded. "Fire on my mark. Now!" A synchronized volley of hybrid weaponry struck the Imperium vessel's vulnerable point. Explosions rippled across its surface as the massive ship's systems began to fail. Admiral Frost's voice boomed through the command center. "The Dreadnought's primary weapons are offline. Conclave ships are moving in to secure the area." As the immediate threat subsided, Jeffrey and Cora turned their attention to the summit delegates. They quickly organized an emergency session to address the recent events and discuss the implications of sharing their hybridization technology. The conference room buzzed with tense energy as representatives from across the galaxy debated the potential consequences of such powerful genetic manipulation techniques. "We cannot ignore the military applications of this technology," one delegate argued. "How can we ensure it won't be misused?" Before Jeffrey could respond, Dr. Zen burst into the room, his scales shimmering with excitement. "Forgive the interruption, but we've made a startling discovery in the quarantine zone." All eyes turned to the xenobiologist as he activated a holographic display. Images of strange, beautiful creatures filled the air, organisms that seemed to blend characteristics of Nova Harmonia's native species with the introduced hybrid genetics. "These new life forms exhibit unprecedented adaptability and resilience," Dr. Zen explained. "They're able to thrive in environments that would be lethal to their parent species." The room fell silent as the implications of this discovery sank in. Jeffrey and Cora shared a look of perseverance before addressing the assembled delegates. "This is precisely why we need to continue our research," Cora stated firmly. The potential benefits of controlled hybridization could revolutionize life across the galaxy. As the debate resumed with renewed vigor, Jeffrey turned to Dr. Zen. "Expand your research team. We need to understand these new life forms as quickly as possible." Outside the conference room, Nova Harmonia hummed with activity. Teams of scientists and engineers fanned out across the planet, conducting detailed analyses of the energy nodes and implementing stabilization measures. In orbit, Conclave ships maintained a protective perimeter around the captured Imperium dreadnought. Admiral Frost coordinated with their fleet commanders, ensuring the prisoners were processed according to galactic law. As night fell, Jeffrey and Cora retreated to their private quarters, exhaustion evident in their movements. The luminescent patterns on their skin pulsed gently, a visible sign of their hybrid physiology working to repair the day's strain. Cora sank into a chair, her eyes distant. "We've opened a door we can't close, Jeffrey. The galaxy will never be the same after today." Jeffrey nodded, his mind already racing with plans for the future. "No, it won't. But we'll face whatever comes next together, as a united hybrid civilization." As they rested, the energy nodes of Nova Harmonia pulsed in harmony, a testament to the new era dawning for their fledgling colony. The challenges ahead were immense, but so too were the possibilities. In the depths of space, the eyes of the galaxy turned toward the small, transformed world, wondering what new marvels or dangers might emerge from its hybrid heart. Civilization, the challenges ahead were immense, but so too were the possibilities. As the first rays of Nova Harmonia's sun pierced the horizon, Jeffrey and Cora stirred from their fitful sleep. The luminescent patterns on their skin pulsed gently, responding to the planet's awakening energy. They shared a silent glance, both acutely aware of the monumental tasks that lay before them. Within hours, they found themselves seated at the head of a makeshift conference table in the command center. Admiral Frost's holographic image flickered to life, joined by Captain Thorne and Dr. Alara, who entered the room with data pads in hand. "Status report," Jeffrey said, his voice carrying the weight of recent events. Admiral Frost spoke first, his usually stoic expression tinged with concern. "The Imperium dreadnought has been secured, and our defenses are holding. However, long-range sensors have detected increased activity at the edge of our system." Captain Thorne leaned forward, her eyes narrowing. "We've observed multiple unidentified vessels. Their movements suggest they might be Imperium allies." Jeffrey nodded, his mind already racing with potential countermeasures. "We need to upgrade our early warning systems. Captain, I want you to lead a team to install advanced sensor arrays around the planet. We can't afford to be caught off guard again." As Thorne acknowledged the order, Dr. Alara cleared her throat. "There's more, Your Majesties. We've received reports of unusual activity in the quarantine zone." The room fell silent as Dr. Alara activated a holographic display. Images of strange, alien creatures filled the air, beings that seemed to blend characteristics of Nova Harmonia's native species with the introduced hybrid genetics. Dr. Zen's team has observed rapid evolution among these new life forms, Alara explained. "Some of these creatures are developing abilities that could potentially benefit our colony." Cora leaned in, her eyes widening with fascination. "What kind of abilities?" "Enhanced photosynthesis, rapid cellular regeneration, even rudimentary energy manipulation," Alara replied. "The possibilities are extraordinary." Jeffrey stood, his decision made. "Expand the research facility. I want more resources allocated to studying these phenomena, but maintain strict containment protocols. We can't risk another incident." As the meeting concluded, Jeffrey and Cora made their way to the newly established diplomatic wing. Ambassador Zora awaited them, standing beside a holographic rendering of a massive structure. "Your Majesties," Zora greeted them, her multifaceted eyes gleaming. "The Galactic Conclave has approved the plans for our research facility. Construction will begin immediately." Cora studied the plans, noting the integration of both alien and hybrid architectural elements. "This will create new job opportunities for our colonists," she observed. Jeffrey nodded, his mind already considering the implications. "It will also increase interaction between hybrid and non-hybrid individuals. We'll need to prepare for that." As they discussed the details of the construction project, a priority message flashed across Jeffrey's data pad. He frowned, reading the contents quickly. "It's from the quarantine zone," he explained to Cora. "They're requesting additional security measures. The new life forms are evolving faster than anticipated." Without hesitation, they made their way to the research facility. The quarantine zone buzzed with activity, Researchers in environmental suits carefully navigating between containment fields. Dr. Zen greeted them, his scales shimmering with excitement. "Your Majesties, you must see this." He led them to a secure observation room, where a creature unlike anything they had ever seen resided. It resembled a cross between a Nova Harmonian tree and an Elysian crystal formation, its branches pulsing with visible energy. "It's converting solar radiation into pure energy," Dr. Zen explained, "at a rate far beyond anything we've seen before." Jeffrey and Cora exchanged glances, the implications clear. Such a discovery could revolutionize their energy production capabilities. As they left the quarantine zone, Cora turned to Jeffrey. "We need to establish a controlled information sharing program with the Conclave. It's part of our agreement, but we must be careful about what we reveal." Jeffrey nodded, his expression grave. "Agreed. We'll create a secure data network, carefully curate the information. Our unique energy network and our personal abilities must remain protected." Days passed in a blur of activity. The colony hummed with the sounds of construction as the spaceport took shape. Jeffrey found himself in near-constant meetings, negotiating trade agreements and cultural exchange programs with the various alien representatives who had attended the summit. Meanwhile, Cora worked tirelessly with Dr. Alara to develop a planet-wide monitoring network. They integrated data from energy nodes, environmental sensors, and the new hybrid life forms, creating a comprehensive picture of Nova Harmonia's health and stability. As the sun set on another long day, Jeffrey and Cora stood on the observation deck of the newly completed spaceport. Ships from various alien worlds docked at the facility, a testament to Nova Harmonia's growing influence. The luminescent patterns on their skin pulsed in sync with the energy flowing through the planet's core. They watched as a group of human and Elysian refugees disembarked from a recently arrived vessel, seeking asylum on their transformed world. Among the new arrivals, a woman with piercing eyes and an air of quiet grit caught their attention. Dr. Maya Adams, a renowned geneticist, approached them with purpose in her stride. "Your Majesties," she said, her voice steady despite the weariness of long travel. "I've come to offer my expertise to your hybridization research team." Jeffrey and Cora shared a look, recognizing the potential value of her knowledge. As they prepared to welcome Dr. Adams and the other refugees, alarms suddenly blared from the command center. Captain Thorne's voice crackled over the comms. "Multiple unidentified ships have just entered the system. They're on an intercept course with Nova Harmonia." The moment of peace shattered. Jeffrey and Cora rushed back to the command center, their minds racing with the challenges that lay ahead. As they moved, the energy nodes across Nova Harmonia pulsed with increased intensity, as if the planet itself was preparing for what was to come. Come. The energy nodes across Nova Harmonia pulsed with increased intensity, as if the planet itself was preparing for what was to come. Jeffrey and Cora burst into the command center, their skin patterns flashing with urgency. Captain Thorne's fingers flew across the holographic display, bringing up detailed scans of the approaching vessels. "Multiple signatures detected," she reported, her voice taut. "Configuration matches known Nexus Imperium designs, but there's something different about them." Before they could analyze the data further, a priority alert flashed across the main screen. Admiral Frost's holographic image materialized, his expression grave. "Your Majesties, we have an incoming distress signal," he announced. "A damaged ship is requesting emergency landing clearance. They claim to be a previously unknown species, called the Zithrians." Jeffrey exchanged a quick glance with Cora. The timing was suspicious, but they couldn't ignore a call for help. He nodded decisively. "Grant them clearance. Captain Thorne, dispatch medical teams and security personnel to the docking bay. We'll meet them there." As they hurried through the bustling corridors of the spaceport, Jeffrey's mind raced with possibilities. Could this be a trick by the Imperium? Or was it a genuine plea for aid from a new potential ally? The docking bay hummed with activity as the Zithrian ship made its final approach. Emergency crews stood at the ready, while security forces maintained a protective perimeter. With a hiss of equalizing pressure, the ship's airlock cycled open. A tall, slender figure emerged, his iridescent skin shimmering under the bay's harsh lights. Behind him, a diverse crew followed, including a striking female with piercing silver eyes. "I am Krell, captain of the Zithrian vessel Starweaver," the lead figure announced, his voice carrying a melodic undertone. "This is Lyra, our chief scientist. We come seeking aid for our people." Jeffrey stepped forward, extending a hand in greeting. "I am Jeffrey, and this is Queen Cora. Welcome to Nova Harmonia. Please, tell us of your plight." As medical teams tended to the injured Zithrians, Krell and Lyra explained their dire situation. Their homeworld faced a catastrophic environmental collapse due to a rapidly mutating pathogen. Nova Harmonia's success with hybridization had given them hope for a solution. "We've heard whispers of your achievements," Lyra said, her silver eyes gleaming with intensity. "We believe your hybridization techniques could be the key to saving our world." Cora nodded, her expression thoughtful. "We'll do everything we can to help. Dr. Alara, please escort our guest to the medical wing for a full examination. We'll convene a research team immediately." As the Zithrians were led away, Jeffrey turned to Captain Thorne. "What's the status of those unidentified ships?" "They've taken up positions at the edge of the system," Thorne reported. "No aggressive moves yet, but they're definitely watching us." Jeffrey's fist tight. "Maintain our alert status. I want regular updates on their movements." Over the next few days, Nova Harmonia buzzed with activity. Dr. Alara and the newly arrived Dr. Maya Adams worked tirelessly with Lyra, studying the Zithrian pathogen. Their findings were both fascinating and alarming. The hybridization process could potentially be adapted to create a cure, Dr. Adams explained during a briefing. "But we'll need access to more advanced facilities." Jeffrey nodded, his decision made. "You'll have full use of the quarantine zone's research labs. This project takes priority." As work on the cure progressed, Jeffrey found himself increasingly occupied with colony management. He oversaw the expansion of hybrid defense forces, integrating new technologies shared by the Galactic Conclave. Training exercises simulated potential attacks, preparing their forces for any eventuality. Meanwhile, Dr. Zen's team made a breakthrough in understanding the rapidly evolving life forms in the quarantine zone. They isolated a compound that allowed for controlled acceleration of the hybridization process. "The potential applications are staggering," Dr. Zen explained, his scales shimmering with excitement. "Both medical and military." Jeffrey immediately recognized the compound's importance. "Increase security around the research facility. This information doesn't leave this room." As he left the briefing, Jeffrey noticed Cora deep in conversation with Captain Krell. Their heads were bent close together, their voices low and intimate. A flicker of unease passed through him, but he pushed it aside. There was too much work to be done. Days blurred into weeks as the colony pressed forward on multiple fronts. The research into the Zithrian pathogen showed promise, but progress was slow. The unidentified ships remained a constant presence at the system's edge, a silent reminder of potential threats. One evening, as Jeffrey pored over defense reports in his private quarters, an urgent message flashed across his data pad. Long-range sensors had detected a massive fleet entering the system. His heart raced as he accessed the data, fearing an Imperium attack force. The truth, however, was equally daunting. The ships were refugees from the Zithrian homeworld, thousands of desperate aliens seeking sanctuary. Jeffrey's fingers flew across the communication panel, summoning an emergency meeting of the colony's leadership. As alerts sounded across Nova Harmonia, he steeled himself for the challenges ahead. The fate of their fledgling civilization hung in the balance, and every decision now would shape their future. The challenges ahead were daunting, but Jeffrey knew they had to face them head-on. As he made his way to the Central Plaza for their scheduled public address, Jeffrey's mind raced with the implications of recent events. The arrival of the Zithrian refugees, the looming threat of the unidentified ships, and the ongoing research into the hybridization process all greatly troubled on his shoulders. Queen Cora joined him, her luminescent patterns pulsing in sync with his own. They exchanged a wordless glance, setting aside their personal differences in the face of the colony's needs. The Central Plaza buzzed with anticipation as colonists gathered to hear their leaders speak. Jeffrey took a deep breath, preparing to address the crowd, when suddenly the ground beneath them trembled violently. Panic erupted as people stumbled and fell. The energy nodes across Nova Harmonia pulsed erratically, mirroring the unstable emotional state of the hybrid leaders and the mounting tensions within the colony. Jeffrey's training kicked in immediately. "Everyone remain calm," he shouted, his voice carrying over the commotion. Emergency response teams assess the damage and ensure the safety of all colonists. As the response team sprang into action, Cora closed her eyes, concentrating intensely. Her connection to the planet's energy network allowed her to sense the disturbances and work to stabilize them. The erratic pulsing of the energy nodes gradually steadied under her influence. The assembled crowd watched in awe as the immediate crisis subsided, many witnessing for the first time the practical benefits of their leader's hybrid abilities. With the situation under control, Jeffrey stepped forward to deliver their planned announcement. "Citizens of Nova Harmonia," he began, his voice steady and resolute. "Recent events have made it clear that we face unprecedented challenges. To meet these challenges, we propose the creation of a specialized team of enhanced hybrids." Murmurs rippled through the crowd as Jeffrey explained their plan to manage the energy requirements for producing the Zithrian pathogen cure. The reactions were mixed, with some expressing excitement at the possibilities, while others voiced concern about the implications of further genetic modifications. Cora stepped forward, her presence calming the crowd. "We understand your concerns," she said, her voice gentle yet firm. "But as you've just witnessed, our hybrid abilities have allowed us to protect and stabilize our home in times of crisis. This team will be vital in our efforts to save not only the Zithrians, but potentially our own future as well." As the announcement concluded, Dr. Maya Adams and Dr. Alara began the process of selecting volunteers for the hybridization enhancement procedure. They set up a screening station at the edge of the plaza, where eager colonists lined up to be considered. Among the first to volunteer were several Zithrian refugees, their iridescent skin shimmering with grit. Lyra, the Zithrian chief scientist, stepped forward to be evaluated. "My people are dying," she said, her silver eyes meeting Dr. Adams' gaze. "If there's a chance I can help save them, I must take it." Meanwhile, Captain Thorne oversaw the expansion of Nova Harmonia's defenses. The training grounds echoed with the sounds of hybrid defense forces, practicing with newly integrated technologies shared by the Galactic Conclave. As the day progressed, tensions began to simmer among different factions within the colony. A group of non-hybrid colonists gathered near the edge of the plaza, their faces etched with concern and frustration. A tall, charismatic man stepped forward from the group, his voice carrying across the open space. "What about those of us who haven't undergone hybridization? Are we to be left behind in this new society you're creating?" Jeffrey recognized the speaker as Marcus Rawl, a respected member of the human community. He approached the group, gesturing for calm. "Your concerns are valid, Marcus. We have no intention of creating a divided society. In fact, I'd like to propose the creation of a Citizens Advisory Council to ensure all voices are heard in our decision-making process." Marcus nodded, some of the tension leaving his shoulders. "That's a start, Jeffrey, but we'll be watching closely to ensure equal treatment for all colonists, hybrid or not." As the sun began to set, Casting long shadows across the plaza, Jeffrey received an urgent message on his data pad. Dr. Zen requested his immediate presence at the research facility. Excusing himself, Jeffrey hurried to the quarantine zone, his mind racing with possibilities. Inside the secure lab, Dr. Zen's scales shimmered with a mix of excitement and concern. "Your Majesty," she began, her voice low, "we've made a startling discovery about the hybridization accelerant. Prolonged exposure appears to lead to unexpected genetic mutations, potentially granting abilities beyond what we've seen in current hybrids." Jeffrey's eyes widened at the implications. "This information is now classified," he said firmly. "Increase security around the research zone immediately. We need to understand the full extent of these mutations before proceeding further." As he left the research facility, Jeffrey's data pad chimed with another alert. Long-range sensors had detected an incoming vessel of Nexus Imperium design, but with an energy signature unlike anything they'd encountered before. A message from the ship crackled through the communication system. "Nova Harmonia, this is Agent Zane. I carry vital information about the Imperium's plans. Request permission to land." Jeffrey's heart raced as he called for an emergency meeting with Admiral Frost and Captain Thorne. As they rushed to the command center to assess this new development, the energy nodes across Nova Harmonia pulsed with renewed intensity, as if the planet itself sensed the pivotal moments that lay ahead. The energy nodes pulsed with an intensity that mirrored the gravity of the situation. Jeffrey's data pad chimed again, this time with an urgent message from Admiral Frost. "Your Majesty, we've detected multiple hyperspace signatures. It's the Nexus Imperium fleet." His heart raced as he sprinted towards the command center. Queen Cora fell into step beside him, her luminescent patterns flickering with concern. "How much time do we have?" she asked. "Minutes at most," Jeffrey replied, his voice tight. "We need to initiate our defense protocols immediately." They burst into the command center, a flurry of activity already underway. Admiral Frost stood at the central holographic display, her face grim as she assessed the incoming threat. "Status report," Jeffrey demanded, taking his place at the command station. "Nexus Imperium fleet emerging from hyperspace," Frost responded. "Multiple dreadnoughts detected. They outnumber us significantly." Queen Cora interfaced with the planet's core systems, her eyes glowing as she channeled energy to Nova Harmonia's defenses. "Shields at maximum capacity," she announced. "Weapon systems online and primed." Jeffrey nodded, his hybrid physiology allowing him to process the influx of information rapidly. "Captain Thorne, deploy our defense forces. Dr. Adams, secure the Zithrian cure and prepare for potential evacuation." As the orders were relayed, the sky above Nova Harmonia lit up with the arrival of the Imperium fleet. Massive dreadnoughts loomed over the planet, their weapon systems glowing ominously. "Enemy ships in range," Admiral Frost reported. "They're charging weapons." Jeffrey's fingers flew across the control panel. "Initiate Phase 1. Launch hybrid fighter squadrons." The space around Nova Harmonia erupted into chaos as sleek hybrid fighters streaked from their hangars, engaging the Imperium's vanguard. Energy weapons crisscrossed the void, creating a dazzling and deadly light show. On the surface, the enhanced hybrid team took up positions at key energy nodes across the planet. Their specialized training and augmented abilities allowed them to interface directly with Nova Harmonia's power grid, channeling unprecedented amounts of energy to the colony's shields and weapons. Jeffrey and Queen Cora stood side by side, their bodies glowing with pulsating energy patterns as they connected to the planet's core systems. The strain was immense, but their hybrid physiology allowed them to withstand it. "Imperium forces breaching our outer defenses," Captain Thorne's voice crackled over the comm. "Ground assault imminent." Jeffrey's face hardened. "I'm heading to the front lines. Cora, can you maintain the energy flow from here?" She nodded, her silver eyes intense with concentration. Go. I'll coordinate from Central Command. As Jeffrey rushed to join the ground forces, the first wave of Imperium dropships pierced Nova Harmonia's atmosphere. The colony's defense turrets opened fire, filling the sky with streaks of plasma, but several enemy craft made it through. Jeffrey arrived at the main research facility just as the Imperium forces touched down. He tapped into his enhanced abilities, his senses sharpening as he assessed the situation. "Form up," he shouted to the hybrid defenders. "Protect the facility at all costs." The air crackled with energy as the two sides clashed. Jeffrey moved with superhuman speed and agility, his hybrid strength allowing him to engage multiple opponents at once. Around him, the enhanced hybrid team demonstrated their newly honed abilities, repelling the Imperium assault with coordinated precision. In orbit, Admiral Frost's voice cut through the chaos. "Your Majesty, we've detected a transmission from within the Imperium fleet. It's Agent Zane." Jeffrey ducked behind cover, narrowly avoiding a barrage of enemy fire. "Patch him through." Agent Zane's voice, strained but determined, filled the comm channel. "Nova Harmonia, I've infiltrated the Imperium command ship. Their fleet formation has a weakness. Transmitting data now." As the battle raged on multiple fronts, Jeffrey felt a surge of hope. With Agent Zane's intelligence and the combined efforts of their hybrid forces, they might just have a chance to turn the tide. In the command center, Queen Cora received the transmitted data. Her eyes widened as she processed the information. "Admiral Frost," she called out, her voice carrying the weight of their potential salvation. "I'm sending you the Imperium fleet's vulnerability. Prepare for a concentrated assault." The space battle shifted as Admiral Frost's ships regrouped, focusing their fire on the weak point in the enemy's formation. The Imperium's seemingly impenetrable line began to fracture under the precision attack. On the ground, Jeffrey led a counteroffensive, pushing the Imperium forces back from the research facility. The enhanced hybrid team moved in perfect synchronization, their augmented abilities allowing them to outmaneuver and overpower their opponents. As the battle reached its crescendo, Jeffrey and Queen Cora made a critical decision. Through their shared connection to Nova Harmonia's energy network, they initiated a planet-wide surge, temporarily boosting the abilities of all hybrid individuals on the surface. The effect was immediate and dramatic. Hybrid defenders found themselves moving faster, hitting harder, and thinking quicker. The Imperium ground forces, caught off guard by the sudden shift in power, began to falter. In orbit, the tide of battle turned decisively as the Galactic Conclave fleet arrived, their advanced ships engaging the remaining Imperium dreadnoughts. Ambassador Zora's voice crackled over the comm system. "Nova Harmonia, we stand with you. The Imperium's reign of terror ends today." As the combined forces of Nova Harmonia and the Galactic Conclave pushed the Imperium back on all fronts, a new transmission came through. The Imperium commander, his voice taut with barely suppressed fury, requested a ceasefire. Jeffrey exchanged a look with Queen Cora, their hybrid physiologies resonating in perfect sync. The battle was won, but the real challenge, securing lasting peace and recognition for their unique civilization, was just beginning.
You have reached the end of the story. If you enjoyed this story and want to support us, please leave a like and subscribe to our channel, and for every comment that says 88, I will heart every single one of them. Thank you for your time.